The Villainess Who Only Had 100 Days to Live Had Fun Every Day. Volume 2. By Yui Regina. Translated by Antoinette Vanessa. Audiobook by Masquerade at Masquerade Audiobooks. Chapter 1. Idle Talk. The Monologue of the Former Fiancé. I, Sazangil Lucchino Lapicenta, was the first prince of the kingdom Lapicenta. That made me the crown prince. I didn't know what benefits the order of birth offered. All I knew was that my duty was to become king ever since I was born. At the same time, the future queen had also been discussed. My future spouse was introduced to me when I was 5 years old. Sazangil, this is Lelouche, the girl who'll be your wife. Even if she's called my future wife. I could only see the black hair of a little girl hiding behind her slightly rotund father. Her long black hair was actually graceful. My mother told me that such a color was uncommon in our kingdom, Lapicenta. Apparently, it seemed to be the characteristic of a foreigner. Her mother was apparently a beautiful woman referred to as the foreign beauty. I didn't think my mother found it as amusing, as that sort of title should be reserved for her, the queen. Furthermore, the daughter of her rival had become her successor. Said daughter would become my wife and would stand while shouldering the future of the kingdom. Well, that kind of adult situation had nothing to do with us. We were 5 and 2 years old at the time. Play with your friend in the garden. As there was going to be an adult discussion, I was entrusted with taking care of Lelouche. Of course, there were maids around, but she seemed curious about my actions. She was immersed in observing me. Well, I'm in trouble. I had a younger brother who was of the same age as her, but he was currently asleep with a cold. Of course, that was my first time looking after a girl. Occasionally, I saw some little girls at the salon of the tea ceremony my mother participated in, but I only greeted them. I never played with any of them. As such, what should I do with this girl who seemed ready to cry at being separated from her father? What is your hobby? Are you interested in flowers? Let's admire the garden. Or, would you like me to prepare some sweets? Ah, what about horses? I can be one. A horse. Horse. Why did she only react there? About 2 hours passed before her parents decided to pick her up. I carried her on my back endlessly and was on all fours the entire time. Your Highness, I feel like I caught a glimpse of the future couple. Well, some say that a man is happier when he's driven by a woman. As they made those remarks, her parents' eyes seemed distant. But I was wondering if it was all right, since the little, black-haired girl seemed to be enjoying herself. Then, I started meeting her regularly. Even though we were engaged, we were still but 8 and 5 years old at the time. All we did was roam around the garden looking for bugs together. By the way, Lelouche, is it all right for you to be looking for frogs today? Why? I thought of her as an innocent girl. She didn't care much about manners, probably because her mother was a foreigner. It was said that her mother was a third princess in her homeland. Well, I didn't mean to badmouth another kingdom I knew nothing about. Because of the girl in front of me, I was enjoying myself. I mean, Lelouche is a girl. Don't you want to read a picture book? We can draw together. I hate playing at home. Is that so? As it had rained yesterday, Lelouche felt sure that there were still some frogs in the garden. It seemed that she had read it in a picture book. Thus, we ended up crouching down by a puddle. Lelouche puffed her cheeks. Yesterday, I was sewing with my mother. Well, what did you make? A rabbit plush toy. Isn't that amazing? But it isn't cute at all. She said so and lowered her face. Reflected upon the puddle was her almost crying expression. She was only 5 years old, right? Why was she so depressed at not being able to sew? It was said that the formal princess education would start after she celebrated her 5th birthday. I was allowed to see her for a bit, but my mother was truly stern. She was much stricter than she used to be. My younger brother, Zerfield, and I were often punished. But I felt that my mother was even stricter with Lelouche. Honestly, I couldn't stand it. That girl should have been crying and running away. But instead, while holding back her tears, she tried to face my mother's strictness up front. Then, isn't it all right to spoil her a little? If so, can you give me the plush toy? What? That stuffed animal. It'll be my birthday soon. I want that stuffed rabbit." Her eyes went wide. Those black, pearl-like eyes, which contrasted her bright skin, were staring at me. But she quickly dropped her gaze. "But I already threw it away." "If so, make it again." "But it's awful." "It's all right. It truly isn't cute. I'll still like it." Then she laughed a little. "Your Highness is weird. Until a while ago, she called me Oni-chan. It felt like it had been a long time ago, and I felt lonely. I'm looking forward to it. As long as it made Lelouche happy, anything was fine. That was the vow I had made towards my fiancé in my childhood. The stuffed animal I promised is unbefitting of your Highness. So, I'll give you this instead." During my birthday celebration, what Lelouche gave me in such a mature tone was a ready-made fountain pen. The small rabbit carved with the engraving of my name was probably compensation for breaking her promise. Perhaps, because she was in front of many, she felt nervous. She kept glancing at her parents and my mother. However, I was aware of it. She must have done her best to make a stuffed animal. In the first place, she was the one who threw it away when I wanted to see it. Therefore, I carefully accepted the fountain pen and put on an exaggerated smile that everyone could see. "Thank you. I'm very happy." "Then, that's a relief." "But, Lelouche, did you know? Inside my jacket was the ugly rabbit you thought you had thrown away. There was no way I could dispose of something she had made. Her efforts, her kindness, I wanted to cherish her for the rest of my life. This is the best birthday gift." Lelouch's princess education was especially fierce. When she was 10 years old, and I was about 13 years old, I once had a private conversation with my mother. I asked her, "Do you really need to be so strict?" To that question, my mother's sharp eyes widened for a moment. However, she soon concealed her face with fan. "Do you think I'm someone who'd waste my time doing something unnecessary? But there's still time before she makes her social debut, other than that. Are you going to suspect me of bullying her due to my grudges, as well?" "As well?" The moment I asked that, my mother sighed loudly. "I just reprimanded Zephield the other day. I made a mistake with him, but you, on the other hand, are about to make your social debut." She'd be qualified to participate in the social circles after her 13th birthday. The same applied to other aristocrats, as well. Naturally, that also included the royal family. Seemingly about to reach a turning point, my mother put her hands on my shoulders. After confirming that no one was around, her face approached mine. "The world of women is really difficult. Mother." I was taken aback by the tone and attitude that was different from her usual ladylike manner. However, my mother's enthusiastic speech that resembled a complaint didn't stop. "I don't mean to say that the world of men is sweet. All I can express is, sinistery hides beneath all those prim appearances. Lurking behind those smiles and white powder is nothing but filth. Moreover, to hide behind a man once it becomes inconvenient, that kind of mindset needs to be changed. I believe that when someone hit you, you need to strike back 1,000,000 times harder." Mother, I got it, already. "Is that so?" I felt like my mother, who laughed on purpose, had been possessed by a demon of madness. As I withdrew, my mother looked down at me. "Anyway, whether she likes it or not, as the one who'll stand at the top, she'll have to face some battles. If this auntie were to give her the slightest bit of leniency, she'd get gobbled up. I wouldn't want that. As such, I have to give her proper weapons to stand up for herself. To give her the right amount of confidence to laugh at those noisy, feathery cretins." She then smiled gently while saying, "I'm still her second mother." My mother would only show that warm expression when Zephield or I fell ill. At the same time, I couldn't get the fact that my mother had just spoken with such vulgarity out of my mind. It must have been my imagination. I couldn't believe she just referred to herself as an auntie, to have badmouthed other aristocrats. What was more, to call them noisy, feathery cretins while grinning. No way, there's just no way. Then, I asked for a confirmation. "Then, it isn't because you dislike Lelouche or her mother?" "Oh, I dislike that foreign beauty princess, all right. But I do wonder, will her beauty remain for eternity? Not only that, She's so subservient to her husband, even referring to him with honorifics from her kingdom. Her brazenness drives me crazy. Mother. She didn't seem to want to hear it. I didn't know what to call her honest impression. Then, my mother snapped her fan shut. I won't do anything as petty as hitting the girl. She's innocent. Rather, I feel sorry for her. She has to marry into the royal family despite the fact that she doesn't like it. It's because of the family history of her parents. Well, the daughters of noble families are nothing more than tools. Still, as expected, I wish we had a little more choice in this day and age. Mother was formerly a princess of a neighboring kingdom. She seemed to have gotten married for the sake of maintaining peace. But like a habit, she often told my father, I married you because I want to. In fact, in her homeland, there seemed to be many candidates for the marriage. Among her brothers and sisters, she seemed to have been chosen. She said that she won the title of Queen Lapicenta through rock paper scissors after having a conflict with her younger sister. Lelouche, on the other hand, was born to be my fiancé. Due to the agreement decided by her parents, she wasn't given any options. It was the same for me. But I couldn't think of anyone other than her, so I never thought of it as unfortunate. But what about Lelouche? I couldn't ask her that because I was afraid. As I pondered about that, my mother gently stroked my head. Well, that's why. As a man, what you've just done is quite evil. If you're one of the gentlemen, try to be in a position where she can remain assured enough to focus on her battle. Refrain from stepping into her world. But, what I just did, isn't that what women usually want? I lifted my eyebrows at her so-called general theory. My mother dismissed me with a smile. She said, you should broaden your horizon. That smile convinced me. That was the face of a woman who stood at the top of the kingdom. And that was also what Lelouche was striving for. Even if you say so, even if I was told to not step into the world of women, I couldn't help but worry about her. Yet when I asked Lelouche, she'd resolutely answer, that's correct, Your Highness. I do feel that it'd be troublesome if an outsider were to barge into my world. But more importantly, the Queen isn't bullying me. At that time, she was about 13 years old. Recently, she seemed to have deepened her knowledge regarding the history of the arts. However, she also had bad memories towards my mother's treatment towards her. Due to how she was treated that day, she was depressed. Thus, I asked her if she was still in pain and if there was anything I could do for her. Immediately before her social debut, she became able to execute the most elegant curtsy I had ever seen from a noble lady in the last 3 days. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness Sazangel, but I'm all right. Her Majesty scolded me due to my own failure. I'm grateful she was willing to point it out. She smiled humbly. That night, as I slept in the castle bedroom, I heard singing from the hallway. Ha! A ghost. I believed that ghosts were fictitious, something out of one's delusions. Or to be precise, one's delusions were the catalyst for that. As such, the possibility that such mysterious phenomenon could occur existed. Perhaps, the books only lied about the ghosts being fictitious. As I thought, I want to go to the bathroom. No matter how much I argued to dispel my fear, I couldn't suppress the urge to go to the toilet. To experience wetting myself or to face a mysterious phenomenon. Faced with those ultimate choices, the latter was the only option for the future king candidate who had already made his social debut. How cold. While holding my sleepwear, I walked through the terrifyingly dark corridor. Every time I got closer to my destination, the singing only grew louder. Then, I saw it. Ah, this helmet is so cloudy, Father, I'm giving up, this head. She had donned a maid's uniform. If possible, I wanted to see her wearing such garments in a bright place. After all, I was sure it would emphasize her gorgeous black hair. With that immodest appearance, she entwined herself with the decorative armor as if dancing. She was happily polishing the top of its helmet with a cloth. Soon, her song reached its zenith. How lovely is the vegetable noodle. Thus, Lelouche Elkage met my eyes. Her cheerful singing stopped. For some reason, I was giving a round of applause to her. What a nice song. Then, is it all right for me to keep singing? What? For some reason, even after I had reached at the toilet, or even after I fell asleep, her singing party didn't stop. Lelouch would be staying at the royal castle for 2 nights and 3 days. Part of her princess education required her to reside in the royal castle day and night to acquire the spirit and taste of the royal family. Thus, the following day, Lelouch was still in the castle. Due to my lack of sleep the previous night, I overslept a little. I had to hurry to the cafeteria. After all, I had promised to eat with my entire family. Not to mention, Lelouch would be present. On the way, I met Zephield, who was staring across the courtyard. Zephield, if you don't hurry, mother will scold you. Oh, older brother. When I was stunned. Lelouch. She was rolling around in the courtyard. Moreover, she was laughing boisterously. Her dress was caked with grass and mud. When I rushed to her rescue, she greeted me with a perfect smile as usual. Oh my, good morning, Your Highness Sazengil. What a fine day this is. Lelouch, what the hell are you doing? Shouldn't it be obvious? As you can see, I'm practicing cartwheels. See, cartwheels. Fufu, it seems that you're still half asleep. Does she think I'm befuddled from sleep deprivation? But it wasn't necessary for Lelouch to learn cartwheels, right? Would any lady be cartwheeling at a party? I involuntarily turned towards Zephield, who had already fled. He probably went to call someone. Then, all I had to do was calm Lelouch, who was smiling. I see. I just can't think of anything else to say. Why are you doing such a thing? Because I want to master acrobatics. Acrobatics. Indeed. The other day, I saw the performance of a theatrical group called a circus with my father. I was truly impressed. Certainly, a circus came to the Elkich territory last weekend. I was also invited, but I couldn't miss my public-related affairs. I wonder if it was truly entertaining. More importantly, I'm glad that she enjoyed it. Therefore, I want to dive into a circle of fire. A circle of fire. Also, wouldn't it be great if I were to be able to train a beast? Is the beast in her previous statement a metaphor? However, from the flow of the conversation, I could only assume that she was referring to the real thing. Well, what should I do? It had been a while ever since I last saw Lelouch's black eyes gleaming. I was truly happy at the sight. If I were to ride a beast and dive into the ring of fire, would Lelouch be? Then, as my thoughts strayed, brother, Lelouch. I've called her father, Zephield. They came, as expected of my brother, Zephield. I was truly relieved, delighted to the brink of tears at having such a competent brother. Zephield had summoned our parents. After they had kindly admonished Lelouch, she was made to return to bed. What? Well, I don't see anything wrong with that. It's common for adolescent girls, right? I think my mother's education might be too strict. After saying that to my mother, she casually dismissed me. Because you were so noisy, a doctor was called in. That said, I don't think there's anything to be worried about. If she can rid herself of her frustrations every once in a while, won't she be satisfied? Should you be speaking in such a manner towards your own son? I couldn't grasp what my mother meant by rid herself of her frustrations. My father, who stopped us while sighing, said everything is fine. Of course, you should stop her before she gets hurt. Once she grows up, I'm sure her eccentricity will calm down. Until then, kindly keep an eye on her. Even though I was admonished by my parents, I was still worried about Lelouch. Thus, I asked Lelouch, who was diagnosed as not having any issues, by the doctor, Lelouch, is there anything I can do for you? In return, I was given an unprecedentedly harsh gaze. Your Highness, may I say something? Of course, tell me anything. Aren't you being a little self-centered? Self-centered? Me? Was it wrong for me, as the elder, to worry about my 3 years younger fiancé? Even if she was already 12 years old, I still recalled the vestiges of those days. That day when she was delighted to ride on my back. That day she was sad because she couldn't make a stuffed animal well, I could still recall them. That's why thank you for your concern, but I can do it by myself without the help of your Highness. But we're a couple. If so, shouldn't you worry about yourself before worrying about me? Don't the princes also have to take royal education? I've heard rumors that your grades are lackluster. What? While it was true that the academy I had entered that year required more than the average minimum regarding grades, it wasn't as strict as top academies. More importantly, I couldn't bring public affairs to the dormitory, so I often returned to the royal castle to see Lelouche. However, it could be said that I hadn't been studying enough. More than that, together with her, I wanted to. To each of their own, let's do our best first. I'm all right alone. I'll definitely become a queen that suits you. But if that's what she wants, I shall hold my breath and watch over her. I shall also do my best to become a king suitable for her. However, if her heart broke in that difficult world of women, then I'd definitely support her. No matter how eccentric she behaved. No matter how many tears she shed. No matter who she was, I'd be the man she wanted. I swore that to the clumsy stuffed animal. In fact, her eccentricity did diminish as she grew older, but it never went down to zero. Hence, when she enrolled into the academy, a lot of trouble and misfortune occurred. At first, I thought I was going to have a seizure. Chapter 2, Their positions have changed. 20 days remaining. Are you truly returning to the academy starting tomorrow? Of course. I had fully recovered from my cold. Rather, I felt tired from sleeping too much. As I was healthy, taking a break from the academy would be outrageous. At my immediate response, God furrowed his eyebrows. Why don't you just stop meeting everyone? Oh my, do you want to monopolize me? While holding the special tea that I had brought into my dream that night, I smirked at God. In response, he slammed his own cup on the table. Oh, no. The special tea spilled onto the tablecloth. Of course, there was no maid within my dream. When I thought of bringing a handkerchief next time, I noticed that God was trembling. What's wrong? God, are you perhaps sick? No. A god doesn't get sick. You don't have to worry about that. That's right. To be healthy all the time, I envy you. Oh, dear. Despite me smiling throughout the entire conversation, God was sighing deeply. He was a very beautiful person, to the point that he appeared picturesque. Still, I wanted to see the other sides of him. By the way, I felt like I rarely saw him smile. How do I make him laugh? Despite my worries, God poured himself more tea and drank it all at once. You missed the point. Shouldn't it be obvious? I don't know what will happen to you if you do as you please. What's with you? Why did you offer to annul your engagement now? You also aren't flirting with the second prince. What is it that you want? What is it that you are trying to do? I haven't decided yet. I also drank my tea all at once and smiled gracefully. Everything is for the sake of my beautiful death. 19 days remaining. Life was unpredictable. Lelouche Elkidge, please marry me. Amongst all the students, was there anyone who could have predicted His Highness Sazengil's new morning greeting? Even I was caught off guard. Of course, His Highness was donning a uniform. However, within his hand was a bouquet of bright red roses that didn't at all belong at the academy. As expected of the Golden Prince. His kneeling appearance was so beautiful, no one could help but be fascinated by it. Although, there were some bluish-black marks on his face. Seeing that they hadn't healed in a week, that must have been painful. Anyway, we were at the academy. It was the middle of the main street, a few steps away from the academy's gate. Moreover, it was a few minutes before the morning homeroom would start. He was attracting a lot of attention from both outside and inside the academy buildings. No matter how much I thought about it, that wasn't the time for a proposal. Let's not inquire any further about this. When I passed by next to him, there was a lady waiting for me. Instead of laughing at the scene before her, she gave an excellent curtsy with a perfect smile. While curtsying, I also gave a smile to the lovely lady with fluffy, coral-colored hair. Good morning, Lumiere. It's a fine day today. Good morning, Lady Lelouche. I'm very happy to see you in good health. Thank you very much for your polite greeting. Shall we go to the classroom? At my modest invitation, her eyes widened for a moment. Yes, her curtsy was fine, indeed. It didn't pale in comparison to mine, someone who was an UN grade student. My compliment must have been conveyed as her expression became brilliant. That smile. Surely, She'd be able to bring happiness to many in the future. Are you telling the truth? Thank you for accompanying me. Fufu, what an exaggeration. I patted Lumiere's shoulder. She was half a step behind me. Lelouche. I ignored the voice that was calling for me. I was satisfied. I could go to the academy with a friend. Thus, that night. I see, you prefer those of the same sex. I won't deny that kind of orientation. But sexually, I prefer men. That day, I tried to brew an herbal tea with an elaborate taste. I chose tea leaves with a relaxing effect. But the god didn't calm down at all. Then, why did you ignore the proposals of both princes and instead make friends with a noble lady? Oh, my. I did that merely because in my absence, she studied hard and showed me quite the gracious figure. Do I need any other reason to be nice to her? That may be the case, but what will you do now? What about those siblings? If you read my heart, you'll understand it right away. I teasingly winked at God. You said you didn't like any of them. Indeed. So please watch until the end. After smiling so much, I drank the herbal tea and suddenly asked, by the way, is God all right as a man? What do you think? Maybe, just to confirm, I should peel off your clothes right here and now. Don't do that. That'll be especially bad. I laughed a little when I saw God mumbling in concern. I wondered which aspect of him was manly. Ah, this is good. Thanks to the herbal tea, the inside of my chest felt warm. 18 days remaining. During a rainy day. Lelouche Elkage. I'm here to propose to you again. 17 days remaining. Even on a day where the wind was strong. Lelouche Elkage, at the very least, listen to my explanation. 16 days remaining. Of course, even during a sunny day filled with beautiful autumn leaves. Lady Lelouche Elkage, this humble man beseeches you to listen to his story. 15 days remaining. Don't abandon me. That day, too, I passed by His Highness Sazengil and went with Lumiere to the classroom. Elkage, I want to talk to you for a moment. Is that okay? What is it? The teacher in charge called out to me. After glancing at Lumiere, I left for the staff room. Then, I was shown something. Lelouche, did you really receive a bad score? Yes, on 2 subjects, as well. I was surprised. During lunch break, I had a conversation with His Highness Suffield when I was about to ask for sword practice. As soon as we were alone in the corner of the usual academy grounds, His Highness leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. Well, rather than that, please train me today as well. Last time, it was about how to anticipate a blow to the abdomen, right? No, we can't have that. You have to study. It's not necessary. I answered immediately while swinging my sword. Whether it was a bad score or failure, it wouldn't matter. I'd die in a dozen days. My parents would be surprised, of course. But after the loss of their daughter, I didn't think my bad grades would matter. To delay the teacher from reporting that to my parents, I shall bribe her for the next dozen or so days. Practicing swordsmanship was much more important than any of that. It was physical preparation. Although to be honest, I still didn't have much insight about the assassination of His Highness Sazengil. By the way, Your Highness Suffield, are you planning to assassinate His Highness Sazengil? What? Why would you casually ask me that? Well, will you seriously answer? I tilted my head, and His Highness Suffield smiled in response. I don't see any reason to kill such a miserable brother. He is already doing it to himself, every morning. Miserable? It is. In that regard, I'm very grateful to Lelouche. I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning. Well, as long as I can help. Truly, for the time being, it seemed unconceivable that His Highness Sazengil would be targeted by an assassin. If such was the case, then I didn't have to master swordsmanship anymore. Still, it's unpleasant to quit in the middle of something you've started. Therefore, please continue. No, I told you to study. Oh dear, I almost forgotten the original topic. His Highness Suffield was also stubborn, wasn't he? Then, with a tone as if admonishing a child, His Highness asked me, So, why did you end up with such a low score? I know you were in bed due to a cold just recently, but you seem to be unexpectedly fine. Although my score is considered below average, the standard in our class is over 80%. While the exam questions are the same, it's quite unfortunate that the standard score of each class is different. That's right, no, I won't be fooled. It's unheard of for an UN class person to have such a bad mark. Certainly, I always tried to stay on top. It might seem natural, but that was also the result of studying hard while no one else was looking. The etiquette and history I learned from the Queen's education were different from the academics taught by the Academy, such as arithmetic and business administration. As such, I also had to put in effort to cover the latter. However, for the last 100 days, I had put my efforts elsewhere. Not to mention, I was absent for a week. Even though I went to class, it was difficult to say that I was concentrating. I also hadn't done any self-studying. It is what it is. Although I had invested a proper amount of time into my studies, the regular test was held immediately upon my return. On that same day, His Highness Sazangil had also started proposing to me. Did he do well in his exam? How were His Highness Sazangil's scores? Who knows? But since it's my older brother, I don't think he will be lackluster about it. If my scores are bad, I won't be able to face Lelouche. That kind of scream kept echoing around midnight. I felt sorry to everyone who worked in the mansion. It must have been terrible. Well, it couldn't be helped that I didn't pass. I didn't have any choice but to do what I should do. Then, let's start training with confidence. No, as I keep saying, Lelouche should study. I felt very reluctant. That day's lunch break ended after I was told to study. Is it true that Lady Lelouche has to try again? After school that day, as soon as I went to the empty classroom to educate Lumiere, she asked me that. It seemed that the rumors, the Villainess, Lelouche Elkage, who has His Highness begging on his knees, received bad scores, were well known to Lumiere's choice class. Oh, my, since whenever did I become a Villainess? When I heard that, I couldn't help but feel curious. After all, it was quite a transition from the merciful Fiancé. However, Lumiere didn't concern herself with that. Mayhap you spent too much time on me, forsaking your own studies. Oh, my. Lumiere, are you calling me stupid? No, of course not. She rushed to deny it. But, like I said, I was stupid. For the first time in my life, I had to a supplementary lecture for the additional exam. Moreover, it seemed that I'd have to skip the makeup class. Somehow, recently, my duty as an aristocrat felt irrelevant. Was that because I had only a little bit of time left? Anyway, it wasn't Lumiere's fault. I did everything myself. When I was thinking of a way to convey it to Lumiere, who was half crying, "It's my time to shine. Goodbye, because no one has called you," I would have liked for the person who had burst through the open door to leave immediately. But unfortunately, that person was His Highness Sazangil. There was no reason for a prince to unconditionally comply to a request of a duke's daughter. I refuse. It's time for a senior like me, who has maintained top grades for majority of his 3 years in school, to be useful. Is that so? Rather, isn't your perfect track record useless against bad grades and additional exams? I won't be turned down. I've already readied my equipment. His Highness presented a lot of notes with both his hands. But while responding appropriately, I turned to Lumiere. "Did you call him?" She nodded. How utterly unnecessary. What was more, she also didn't listen to me. For the time being, don't concern yourself with my problems. Please make up your score quickly. You aren't planning on skipping, are you? No way. I was able to reach the top of my class on my own this time as well. Next year, I will be in the same class as Lady Lelouche. Promotions of class were reviewed with consideration to the results and performance of the past year. The contents of the exams were the same for all classes. Not only did Lumiere manage to become the top of the choice class, her scores seemed to have exceeded that of Dux and the average score of UN as well. In other words, she had scored better than me, even though until recently, she was at the bottom of the choice class. While I had a cold, she must have been doing her best. I want to be Lady Lelouche's friend. I smiled bitterly at the former thief cat who bashfully said that. Aren't we, already? Ha! It couldn't be helped. I bowed to His Highness. Please tutor me. As my student went so far to say that much, I couldn't avoid showing her a disgraceful sight at the end. Also, even though I only said one sentence, she was already making such a fuss. As I thought, she still had a long way to go before she could become a proper lady. I had to help her improve as much as possible. At the same time, there were still many things I wanted to teach her. In the end, we'd naturally end up getting to know each other, right? 14 days remaining. Come on, Lelouche. Let's study. I made plans to study with His Highness Sazangil in the mornings and after school. Meanwhile, during the afternoons, I'd have sword practice. As I thought, I couldn't quit. I had to see it through until the end. After school, Lumiere would also study with us. His Highness was shocked at my instructing Lumiere to balance 8 books on top of her head. I might cry, as well. Therefore, I stopped. I felt like I mustn't cause the future ruler to shed tears. Now that he mentioned it, I've never heard of any future ruler crying. His Highness prepared his own teaching materials. The main points were summarized in a very easy-to-understand manner. His Highness' commentaries on those subjects were also quite enticing. I was spending an unexpectedly fulfilling time learning trivia and other tidbits of knowledge that wasn't limited to the exams. Regardless. 13 days remaining. The cold air of the early morning turned my breath into a somewhat white mist when I exhaled. That day, His Highness Sazangil arranged an empty classroom for us to use again. We were both sitting around one desk. I stopped my pen, which I had been silently running across the page. Your Highness, have you been sleeping properly? Fua, I asked after I finished solving the problems. His Highness, who had created those problems, made a strange sound. Let's overlook the strange sound. The area under your eyes is dark blue. Are you sleeping properly? Isn't that normal? I've been sleeping 24 hours every day. Considering that we only have 24 hours a day, you must be having a wonderful night's sleep. That's right. For him to not even notice my sarcasm, it must be worse than I thought. I closed the notebook and stood up. Finally, Sazangil showed a semblance of awareness. He sat up and held my arm. Wait, Lelouche. I'll definitely help you. Then, Your Highness, I have a request. What is it? I will make it happen. Please don't look so desperate. I'm the ungrateful girl who requested you annul our engagement, remember? Still, what a fool. Can you sit there and close your eyes for 30 seconds? Ha! At my unexpected suggestion, His Highness's widened. Yet, due to my pleading tone, he relented. Although he seemed unwilling, he still closed his lapis lazuli eyes. 1, 2. I counted slowly in my heart. It didn't take long for His Highness' breathing to relax. That he wasn't getting a proper amount of sleep was only natural. The moment our classes ended, His Highness would return to the royal castle and work hard on public affairs. Despite that, he still made time for us to study after school. At what time do you do your official duties? To begin with, when did you even create these supplementary exam preparation notes for first years? As I was flipping through a pile of such notes, I noticed a certain book was mixed within them. Bringing public affairs materials to school isn't good, you know. At the same time, I knew it was by accident. Furthermore, notes were also sandwiched in the book. Words such as costume rental, garments for a national holiday, waste reduction, and approval of His Majesty greeted my eyes. Is this an idea for a proposal? Really, he should be focusing on this more important matter than me. What an absolute busybody. I sighed. If you want to be useful to me, didn't we already agree you wouldn't intruding into my private affairs? I didn't feel like being sarcastic. Because, it was partly my fault. I didn't know that he'd be that desperate after the annulment. Even if he wasn't actually in love with Lumiere, I thought that he'd only be slightly depressed. I didn't think that he'd go to such lengths to catch my attention. I am loved. Only now did I realize that, but it was too late. What could a woman who'd die in 14 days do? All I could do was stay away. May you not be lonely anymore. All I had to do was ensure that the path I was going to take was as bright as possible. I gently brushed the bangs that obscured His Highness' eyes. His face was pretty. I didn't know he could make such a foolish expression. I didn't know even though he was my fiancé that entire time. I barely know anything about you. Had I noticed earlier, would I have made a different decision? I'm sorry, Sazangil. For the first time, I called him without honorifics. That would be the first and also the last. I gently stood up and left the classroom so as to not wake him. It was about time for the other students to come to school. Of course, that classroom was off limits, but, oh, leaving His Highness alone in an empty classroom wasn't good, wasn't it? Regardless of His Highness Zafield's denial, claiming that the assassination case was resolved was difficult. Then, is this the moment the swordsmanship I've honed comes into play? It was when I tried to turn around. Lelouche. My heart skipped for a bit. Looking back on the familiar voice, I saw the Silver Prince, His Highness Zafield. How rare. He brought a paper bag with him. It smelled delicious. When he saw the look on my face, His Highness Zafield chuckled. You see, I bought some for my brother, too. Has Lelouche eaten breakfast yet? That was right. During yesterday's lunch break, light snacks such as cookies were no longer enough. The fact that my stomach rumbled led to my getting laughed a lot during the training. It was still fresh in my memory. Just remembering it embarrassed me. Why did I make such a blunder? The actual reason was simple. I didn't have time to eat breakfast in the mornings. When I looked inside the bag, I saw a lot of delicious bread. Oh, is that fresh cream? I grabbed a piece of the bread filled with fresh cream and took a bite on spot. How sweet. I'm happy. The moment I opened my mouth to take another bite, His Highness Zafield wiped the corner of my mouth before proceeding to lick his fingertip. Surprisingly, Lelouche is a glutton. Please keep that confidential. Of course, being able to monopolize such a cute side of Lelouche is great. Then, may I ask for more? His Highness Zafield tilted his head and asked, Do you want a drink? Then, I told him. His Highness Sazangil is sleeping in the classroom. Can you bring him to the nurse's office? What? His Highness Zafield was flabbergasted to the point that his beauty was ruined. I told him while smiling. Right now, he's sleeping alone in that empty classroom. This is the perfect opportunity to assassinate him, right? Like I said, that kind of joke isn't funny. Oh, is that so? I grabbed another piece of bread and left. Thank you for the help. I could hear a big sigh from behind me. But, he was close with his brother. I was sure leaving him to His Highness Zafield would be all right. 12 days remaining. I had grown quite accustomed to the morning study sessions. Perhaps, His Highness Sazangil also reflected on himself after being carried off bridal style by his younger brother yesterday. That morning, the dark circles under his eyes had become much thinner. His Highness Zafield also brought some bread earlier than yesterday, allowing us to eat while studying together. Oh, Lelouche, to solve that question, shouldn't you be using this formula? Oh, you're right. In that case, this is better. The answer you end up with is the same, but this one saves about 2 calculations. We were all sitting around the same desk. Moreover, to surround one notebook while eating bread, it felt uncomfortable. Still, the 2 royal siblings didn't seem to be on bad terms. Although it might have been early in the morning, inviting Lumiere might be a good idea. While considering that, I focused on my studies. However, that soon came to an end. I have a shift this afternoon. Therefore, I'll have to take my leave. I see, I'm tired, too. See you after school. Then, I shall head for my classroom. I left cleaning up the classroom to the 2 and headed out into the corridor. Regardless of their titles, they still had to do their classroom shifts. As there was nothing else left for me to do, I made plans to visit my homeroom teacher in the morning, update my diary, and note down the necessary learning materials. Afterwards, in between my classes, I would have to clean the blackboard. That was part of my shift. Thus, I went to the staff room, safely put my diary away, and then tried to enter the classroom. At that time, I was splashed by water. What? Oh, my, I apologize. As you were late for the afternoon class, I cleaned the blackboard in your stead. How is it? Marvelous, no? Lala Fable and Media Remel were the one behind that brazen action. Once again, they were wearing matching ribbons. Today, too, they were still good friends. Looking at the blackboard as prompted, I let out a small gasp. Well, what do you think? It wasn't just the two who laughed at my expression. Depraved lady, Lelouche, the tainted future queen, flower blooming in mud. The board was scribbled with words I didn't like. Not even I would use such vulgar and insulting words. Everyone in class was laughing at the graffiti drawn with colorful chalk. Their unity was beautiful. Thus, I smiled. I'm sorry to pop your balloon, but the teacher can't write like this. So, I'll erase it. When I started erasing the blackboard, I could still hear laughter from behind me. She's trying to act strong. Wow, how stuck up. Towards those words, I needn't pay any heed. The graffiti seemed to have been drawn with great force. As such, it wasn't disappearing easily. At that time, I heard a low voice coming from the classroom door. Lelouche, what are you doing? The classroom stilled. I exhaled a little and turned around with a smile. Your Highness Saffield, as you can see, I'm merely doing my duty. Why are you soaked? My uniform still clung to my skin. My drenched hair was still dripping with droplets. Still, to me, who kept smiling, His Highness Saffield was unconvinced. That's not good. Don't make such a terrifying expression. It'll ruin the title of Silver Prince and the 2 other fancy nicknames you have. You misunderstand. I tried cleaning the blackboard with water, only to spill it on myself. How careless of me. Suddenly, my hand, which was cleaning the blackboard, was caught by him. Are you truly all right? Foo-foo, your breath is tickling my ear. The next thing he did was sigh. I was robbed of the rag as it was. When I turned around, His Highness Saffield had reverted to his usual self. I'll do it instead. Please change your clothes, Lelouche. But I can do it myself. Are you trying to bother me? I looked down at my chest. Certainly, my uniform clung to it. However, it wasn't transparent, for it wasn't the summer uniform. Nevertheless, His Highness Saffield seemed keen on dismissing me. Well, it's fine. For the most part, I was able to erase the parts one didn't want His Highness to see. Well then, I shall happily oblige. I'll tell the teacher. Take your time. Thank you. Before leaving the classroom, I thanked him. Even so, I turned around and smiled bitterly. Instead of Lumiere of the Troyes class, they were now targeting me. They thought I had fallen so miserably. Thus, in an attempt to curry favor from the royal siblings, they targeted me instead. Yesterday, I received multiple gifts from both the silver and the golden princes. It was a shame that the news hadn't reached them. Personally, the painting they had given me was too godly, though. But, are you all aware? To pick a fight with me also means angering both of His Highnesses. Would your parents approve of your actions? How courageous. How bold. I didn't hate it, at all. So, how should I return the favor? I contemplated that while combing my damp, black hair. 11 days remaining. As a house that had been growing in power for many years, the Elkidge family had a bad reputation. Part of the reason why was because my mother came from abroad. The fact that it was due to diplomatic reasons was something no one paid any heed to. That said, none of that meant my parents couldn't socialize with them. They just weren't very social. For that reason, now that there was no official successor, the opportunity to destroy my family existed. Hence, the students of the UN class began oppressing me. They might have been trying to dabble in my father's work, as well, but no news regarding that had reached my ears. At the same time, I didn't want to worry my family. Thus, for the sake of the future, I had to get along with everyone. However, unfortunately, starting from the next day was a break. Moreover, there was going to be a follow-up exam over the weekend. Thus, to keep from revealing any vulnerability, I acted enthusiastic. What would you like as a reward? Ha! You've been studying hard. I want to reward you. His Highness Sazengil, who came all the way to the Elkidge family, without an appointment to visit, asked me while examining my answers. That's right, should I give you something? His Highness Saffield, who without an appointment to visit, leaned over from the other side. Your Highness Sazengil, I don't mind you glaring angrily at your brother, but please don't corner me. Then, from behind, Should I go home? Lumiere, the only one I invited, tried to read the atmosphere. No, you shouldn't. I ignore the other two and stood up. I proceeded to open my closet. Anything is fine. Please choose the one you like. Phui. Due to the strange noise she made, I wanted to give her a light smack. But it was understandable. Of course, what was in the closet were my dresses. There were about 10 outfits for everyday wear inside. Ah, I see. She'd prefer something better. For party, we'll need to go to another room. Let's go see them. No, no, no. I can't possibly receive such a fine thing. I just came to pick up one of your old ones. Also, wasn't it supposed to be a uniform? As she said, I had an old uniform. Even though it was old, it was a uniform that I had only worn for the few months classes had been held this year. I no longer felt like wearing it. When I spoke with Lumiere, she wondered if I had any spare uniforms. Since entering the academy, Lumiere had lost a lot of weight. She said that it was due to the stress of being bullied. However, after I started teaching her, her body became even skinnier. Because of that, her uniform had become loose. Thus, instead of letting her buy a new one, I offered her my old uniform. As I was taller, it'd be a bit long, but that wasn't a problem. Due to my training, my uniform was worn out. Meanwhile, my old uniform was still beautiful. Even if I bought a new one for myself, I wouldn't be able to wear it more than 10 times, anyway. Giving it to her was more meaningful. She was someone who'd be continuing her student life. As for these dresses, there are more than enough to be kept as reminders. If so, wouldn't they be more useful for her dance practice? Then, I shall be relentless. Take a look. What do you think? This one is my favorite. It was a dress I truly loved. The garment was particularly luxurious, as was with abundant gold embroidery on a gorgeous dark blue background. It may be necessary to adjust the size as it was made a long time ago, but it's still meant for everyday wear. That's. His Highness Sazangil sat up. He seemed to remember it. It was the dress he had given me when I made my debut into the social circle. I focused on Lumiere. I really want you to wear it, for I can't anymore. As soon as I said that, His Highness Sazangil rushed out of the room. He seemed to have pulled His Highness Zephield along with him. Along the way, His Highness Zephield muttered, "That can't be true," as he followed after his brother. Lumiere was the only one who couldn't understand the situation. But I wouldn't tell her. If she knew, she'd probably refuse it. I smiled. This is a gorgeous dress, especially when dancing. Please take good care of it. Seems like you're doing everything you can. I've never been so grateful to God. Even in my dreams, I was studying with all my might. In the world of dreams, I was free to do whatever. It was wonderful. I always ended up conversing with God, though. When I thought about it, couldn't it be used more meaningfully? Considering that I only had a little time left, I regretted it a little. Now why do I feel like I'm being ridiculed? That's not true. I love God. Wow, how suspicious. As I thought, you're belittling me. I'm hurt. I'm not trusted. Although I pretended to cry, I didn't look away from the reference book. I'm not very good at accounting. Perhaps a passing score in the follow-up exam was still attainable, but, looking at the past questions prepared by His Highness, it seemed that there'd be one nasty question. To deal with that, a formula from my 3rd year should suffice, but it was quite difficult. I looked up towards the god who was pouring tea. We were sitting face to face. God, are you good at studying? If it's the solution you want, I can tell you. But that's why the process and way of thinking are also important, right? If you were to skip the middle point and go straight for the answer, I think the problem will be insanely difficult to comprehend. In other words, it's something that a genius can't understand even if you teach it. I don't want to make you sound like a fool. But well, that's roughly it. I read the reference book once again. I'm in trouble. Should I ask the teacher? But that would be tedious. What if as a consequence of my asking, the teacher made the question even more difficult? What if the teacher told my father? If my father were to know that I had to take a follow-up exam? As I contemplated, God suggested, "Why don't you ask the Crown Prince?" Isn't his teaching method easy to understand? His Highness Sazangil was certainly talented. However, it wasn't merely because of his competency. The reason his teaching was very easy to understand was because he put in a lot of effort. Effort was also considered a talent. Rather, I thought that it was the most important talent in the world. But that was why I shook my head to God's proposal. It was because I had handed his gift, one with sentimental value, to another woman. As of the present, he probably won't care about me anymore. Would you like to make a bet? What? God spoke while offering a cup of tea. I'm going to bet that tomorrow, the royal siblings will be waiting for you with a lot of study notes. What will you do if I win? I will lick your foot. There's no need to go that far. There was no way I could emerge victorious from that one. Therefore, I only quietly faced the reference book. 9 days remaining. Good morning, Lelouche. You're a little late. Are you perhaps feeling sick? I think you're the ones who came too early. Are these people stupid? As usual, the royal siblings were waiting for me inside the empty classroom. Well, it was unusual for His Highness Saffield to be here at this time. He always came shortly before I finished my tutoring ended. On the desk, handmade notebooks were piled up. There was also a paper bag giving off a delicious smell. His Highness Saffield shrugged, took something out from the paper bag. Because it's cold today, I brought some soup. Won't you drink it before it gets cold? Thank you very much. I brought you some soup, too, Lelouche. There are corn pottage and chicken consommé. Which one do you prefer? Then, the pottage. All right. Why are they acting as if nothing happened? Shouldn't His Highness Sazangil still be angry about the other day? His Highness Saffield must be feeling shocked by my folly. The royal siblings being on good terms was great, but there shouldn't be any room for me anymore. Even so, His Highness Sazangil still offered me the soup. Involuntarily, I fell down. I would apparently have to lick God's feet. Lelouche. No, it's nothing. Your Highness, may I ask you something? Ask me anything. I lifted my head and immediately took out the reference book. It was the same scene as usual. However, it felt warmer, much warmer than the soup. I kept eating to hide my eyes from them. However, my daily life was also on its last spurt. Lelouche, will you be studying during the day? If possible, I'd like to have sword training once in a while. You still haven't given up. Lack of exercise will make me dull. You just bought a new uniform. Do you want it to get dirty again? The morning classes had ended. Immediately after that, His Highness Saffield beckoned me. There was nothing wrong with Lumiere's uniform. Rather, her uniform, which wasn't worn anywhere, felt good. As I stumbled for an answer, His Highness grabbed my hand. All right, let's head for the cafeteria, soon. I reserved some seats. Lelouche. The Duchess Lala Fable and Count Media Remel were who interrupted us. I stared at the two, they were smiling. Sure enough, His Highness Saffield's lapis lazuli eyes filled with coldness. I'm sorry, but Lelouche already made a promise with. What's wrong with that? Recently, those coming up in the palace have been monopolizing Lelouche. We are lonely, too. We also want to get along with Lelouche. Wow, what lies. It was obvious that they were planning something. Hence, I was interested. Therefore, I smiled to His Highness. Your Highness, I'll definitely head to the cafeteria. Could you leave first? But. Thank you for reserving me a seat, but I'd like to respond to this. After I appealed to him, His Highness shrugged. Lelouch sure is stubborn. It's an honor to be complimented. It's not a compliment. While saying that, I thought that His Highness, who had let go of my hand, was truly kind. Come on, over here. There's something we want to show you, Lelouch. The destination I was being taken to was the back of the academy building. Oh my, how thrilling. It's too obvious. Whatever am I going to do? However, my uplifting feelings calmed down once I saw who was there. Lumiere. Lady Lelouch. Lumiere, who beckoned to me in sorrow, was surrounded by boys. The brand new uniform I had given her was ruined. That said, the show seemed to have yet reached its peak. These guys are bad news. I narrowed my eyes. What the hell are you doing? Isn't it obvious? Foo foo foo, they seem to like her. We merely introduced them. Their well-sounding words failed to conceal their malice. When I glanced at Lala, she had a twisted smile. Isn't Lelouche the same as her? You continued to string along His Highness Sazangil while also playing with His Highness Zephield along the side. As the future queen, isn't it troublesome? I mean, what if the father of the child becomes unclear? His Highness Zephield belongs to everyone. Hey, media. Is that it? As the Duke's daughter, Lala was aiming to become the fiancé of His Highness Zephield. As for media, I thought that her motive was much shallower. I didn't think any of them had a fiancé yet. I often saw them frolicking in the academy. Considering the possibility that Lala would marry into the royal family, I gave her some advice. If it's His Highness Zephield that you're aiming for, then it's better to stop. It sure is an honor to marry into the royal family, but the current queen, who is also his mother, is a very strict person. I think you'd be happier marrying someone of equal status. Considering Lala's daily words and conduct, the future hardship was clear. While His Highness Zephield wasn't a bad person, he also wasn't an unconditionally kind person. Like his mother, he was truly Spartan. After all, I was trained harshly every day. Did she think that he'd comfort her when she cried about the princess education being too painful? However, Lala refused to wake up from her dream. So what? I'm not like the others. I was pushed away by her. I staggered a few steps and bumped into Lumiere. Lala raised her hand before slapping me mercilessly. I was shocked. My head and neck jolted backwards. My view was dyed black. The smell and taste of earth made me suffocate to the point of wanting to cry. It hurt. I couldn't open my eyes. There was a faint voice forcibly calling me, Lady Lelouche. My beautiful classmates pointed their fingers as they laughed and looked down on us. Ahahaha, ahahaha, what an unfortunate accident. But it suits you well, Lelouche. Which other lady would look so good caked in mud? Look at this menace of a duke's daughter. Why don't you both become serfs? It'd suit you. I see. They are making fun of farmers. You foo foo foo. As I thought. This is too fun. Then, mud was dropped from the second floor. Dropped. They carried mud all the way up there. How hardworking. Foo foo foo. Ahahaha. Lady Lelouche. I laughed as I held Lumiere's shoulder. I smiled and smiled. Then, I stood up alongside Lumiere. What a pleasure, I truly think it is. While I was laughing loudly, everyone became scared. Did she go crazy? Who knows? You are the ones who picked a fight with me, so you better be prepared. That was to be my last school life. I shall entertain you thoroughly. Chapter 3, Let's have fun together. After that, I went to the cafeteria covered in mud, of course. Lumiere went home by carriage. The royal siblings were concerned, to which I answered. Recently, beauty methods using mud are popular. I also went to class as I was. The teacher was surprised and suggested that I head home. However, I answered sincerely, Teacher, I want to have a flawless skin. I wanted to say that I also attended my after-school lessons as I was as well, but the royal siblings got angry and told me to go home. After returning home, I helped with the field work, of course. I also explained the mud beauty method to my father. I swung my sword about 100 times, took a bath, and had a relaxing dinner made by my mother after a long time. I wonder if I should eat and study for the follow-up exam with God. So, here I am. Don't be so nonchalant about it. Couldn't you have at least gone home for the time being? You could have borrowed a replacement outfit. Rather than that, I'd like to borrow your feet. What? Why? When I knelt before God, he became terrified. Is it about yesterday's bet? It's fine. There's no need for you to do that. But, as you said, the royal siblings came to teach me. Didn't I lose the bet? I have to keep my promise. Unconceivable. Please stop. It'll a problem if your propensity distorts any further. What's that? I was truly interested in the God's word just now. However, when I asked, he refused to answer. How boring of God. Then, answer my question. Hey, Why did you remain covered in mud without changing your clothes? I need to know the answer. Lelouch, why did you insist on remaining like that? Even if he were to call me Lelouch. That question, even the royal siblings asked it of me over and over. Because otherwise, it'd be boring. That's not the problem. What about your reputation as a lady? I'm honored to be complimented. I'm not complimenting you. Ah. God was energetic again that day. If he screamed that much, his throat would hurt, right? Because he had always brewed tea for me, it was my turn that day. It was a service. Not to mention, the tea is special. Take a look, God. The other day, His Highness received a large amount of these. What's the ingredients for this tea? It seems to be the root of a tree called burdock that is cultivated in the Orient. Apparently, when shipped, it is done so covered mud. In the end, it's still mud. This was basically just the roots, right? Did he think that there was a woman who liked and wanted to be covered in mud? Of course, if it was after doing field work, that was different. I considered it a medal. Of course, I also had no grudge against burdock. According to my research, it was rich in fiber and was good for beauty. It also had a unique flavor. When I drank it, the god also sighed and followed suit. Fufu, such a delectable drink. God then asked me, "So, what do you want to ask for as a reward?" This is the reward I asked for of His Highness Saffield for the follow-up exam. Well, was there anything else? I was sure that the god wanted me to ask for dresses, accessories, and a feast. But my answer had already been decided. Of course, 8 days remaining. I had to let go of my uniform and buy a new one. I tried to save money, but it didn't work very well. However, I couldn't afford to fail until the retest. There were only 3 days to go. My studies were also on their last spurt. That morning, I was enthusiastic to receive tutoring from His Highness Sazangil. But, His Highness, if Lelouch isn't feeling well, why don't we take a break from school and spend the rest of our time until the exam in the mansion? I'm sorry, but I will have to refuse. He was trying to isolate me so that I wouldn't be bullied. Still, His Highness refused to relent. But yesterday, Lelouch was bullied, too. Don't disturb my enjoyment. Enjoy, meant. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, look. His Highness Saffield was sighing, as I thought. He seemed to understand me. I thought that it was important in cases of unavoidable circumstances, but why should the victim have to evict? Shouldn't it be the perpetrators who give up the place? While heading to the classroom, such was my preaching to His Highness Saffield. Upon entering, beautiful flowers were displayed on my seat in the classroom. There were a lot of white flowers with small petals. Ah, were they the ones called shiragiku from the east? The flowers with the meaning of the end of life. As I admired those flowers, I heard gigglings. His Highness Saffield frowned. Lelouch, what is this? It's a gift from a kind person. I took a flower from the vase and put it in my hair. Am I pretty? His Highness Saffield, who narrowed his eyes, didn't compliment me. When I looked at my faint reflection in the window, the flower shone against my jet-black hair. Unfortunately, my desk was too small. During class, I had to vacate the vase. After having my classes as usual, it was finally time for sword practice. Unusually, His Highness Saffield invited me, although I didn't spend much time holding the sword. Instead, I was taught passive techniques and what to do when being tackled. The solution was to pierce either the groin or the face. After having a good time, I returned to the classroom again. Well, the next lesson was, and when I put my hands inside my bag. Kaya. Lelouch. There was a tactile sensation of cooling on my hand. On it was a brown creature the size of a thumbnail. How dull. It had many thin limbs. They couldn't be counted because it kept moving around. His Highness Saffield, who was about to sit down, came to check the situation with a grim expression. Thus, I held out my hand. Your Highness, what's this? Gya. Oh dear. His Highness' scream surprised me. The insect also fell from my hand and scurried across the floor. Despite his shock, His Highness was still concerned about me. Lelouch, that's... I don't know what kind of insect that is. Oh, I still have more in my bag. When I turned my bag over, His Highness Zafield's scream rang throughout the classroom. Apparently, they were earthworms. For them to have procured so much, it was evidence of good soil, also Baron Aljerk said. There were others as well, such as spiders. I was impressed at how they managed to collect so many spiders. When I was observing them, someone grabbed my sleeve. Lelouche. His fingertips were trembling while his beautiful eyes were moist. I wanted to tell him to just run. But most of my classmates had fled from the classroom. Wouldn't it be impossible to start class without someone cleaning up? Due to the farm work, I'm used to all manners of insect. Leave it to me, Lelouche. Foo-foo. Even so, who would have thought? His Highness Zafield apparently wasn't good with insects. As long as one was alive, there were many interesting discoveries to be made every day. I was happy about that. And also a bit lonely, which was my only regret. If you aren't good with insects, there's no need to force yourself to help me. I can't do that. By the time I was able to finish playing tag with the insects that had spread across the classroom and safely release them behind the school building, the bell rang. Unfortunately, the afternoon classes were cancelled because the classroom needed a thorough cleaning. I was also offered a plan to have my classmates serve as cleaners to do away with the insects, but I seemed unable to respond to such good intentions from my classmates. After all, if I had free time, I'd prefer to continue my sword practice. However, I couldn't request His Highness Zafield, who was still pale, for training. As expected, I had to take a break in the cafeteria. Most of my classmates appeared to have go out to play together. Lelouche, please do your best to study for the follow-up exam. For them to support me, how kind, really. For the time being, I needed a break. I sipped some cold Dazzling tea I had brought with me. I stared at His Highness who sat across of me. He was about to drink a café au lait. However, he seemed to have noticed my line of sight. What's wrong? Oh, I was wondering if I shouldn't drink this. Why? I feel like the taste is odd. I felt like the tea, which should have a hint of white grape, had another miscellaneous taste. When I muttered that, His Highness took the glass from me. Lend it to me. He put a small amount in his mouth, tasted it as if chewing something, and then spit it out on a napkin. It's a mild numbing poison. I don't think you will be harmed from swallowing a bit, but are you all right? I'm all right for now. What about your Highness? I'm fine. I'm used to poison. That remark frightened me for a moment, but then I remembered. His Highness Sazengil also said something similar a long time ago. When he was little, he had a habit of being poisoned. His Highness Zafield also didn't know when his life was going to be targeted. He must have habitually ingested light poison to build up resistance. Therefore, he was inevitably familiar with poison. Such a sad fate, still, I laughed. My, you sound like royalty. Unfortunately, I still am part of the royal family. For the time being, His Highness Zafield laughed on purpose. However, he immediately changed his expression and suppressed his voice. What do we do? Should we call all the employees and interrogate them? No, it's fine. It would also be troublesome if someone were to use that as blackmail material against you later. As a prince, I have a lot of manpower. Therefore, do you believe I have need for moles? And here I thought you were more disciplined. After all, you did use to deliver a particular someone handwritten letters. When I voiced my concern, His Highness Zafield smiled bitterly. After sipping his café au lait, he offered me the drink. This one's all right. Such petty tricks. Maybe they just want to be taken care of. Ha! Instead of thanking him, I raised a question. His Highness rested his chin upon the table. As he fiddled with his collar, I had nowhere else to look. Even if I were to be relied on or cursed by the person I like, if it could get me out of a mere in-law relationship, that might be good. I couldn't say anything, so I drank the café au lait I received. Perhaps because it didn't contain any syrup, its bitterness was stronger than I expected. As if he had noticed, His Highness fetched some syrup and poured it in the café au lait. So, how are you going to resolve this situation? Are you thinking of a way? Are you trying to make your father file a formal protest? I usually talk to my father every night in a joking manner. What is he saying? He seemed to be off tune. Please rest assured, for I'll live up to your expectations. Oh, that's right. How about arranging the usual reward? I'm preparing it, but I think it'll be ready the day after tomorrow at the earliest. The day of the follow-up exam? You'll be feeling refreshed after the exam, won't you? I see. In other words, my father mustn't move until then. I smiled and said, I'm looking forward to it. 6 days remaining. Without a hitch, I was bullied yesterday. That day, I was doing fine as well. My study sessions with His Highness Sazangil would end that morning. Because of him, I was having an easier time reviewing my lesson afterwards. Regardless, that still wouldn't guarantee me a good score. As such, I decided to go home early that day and study quietly. As I was thinking that this is a problem. In a dimly lit, closed room, I was at a loss. I was trapped. After class, my teacher asked me to help her carry her bags. To me, it was a menial task. There was no reason I should resort to spouting an embarrassing line like, "Seriously, you're asking the Duke's daughter for this kind of thing?" As a student, I obliged. However, that was a mistake. Incidentally, I was in the same class as His Highness Saffield. Nevertheless, as soon our lessons had ended, he rushed home. It seemed that both His Highness Saffield and His Highness Sazangil were behind in their duties regarding public affairs. Well, that's because they've been helping me with my studies. Still, His Highness Saffield stayed with me as much as he could. I also heard that His Highness Sazangil would accompany Lumiere, except when she was in class, for the both of them to act as shields. Somehow, for me, it was a little tasteless. It was said that upon returning to the boarding house, they were buried in their duties with public affairs. The king appeared to be Spartan, although that much should have been expected. Then, another possible source of help. That was right. The equipment warehouse I was trapped in was located behind the academy. There'd be no student bothering to visit that place. The equipment for club activities were in other warehouses, weren't they? I had no idea if anyone would come to that warehouse. Of course, there was also the matter of security. However, I was sure that the one who planned this ensured there would be no security around that day. At least, if it was me, I'd plan with that much forethought. That was why. Yep, I'm stuck. It seemed that I'd be spending the night in that place as it was. It sure is cold. I was fortunate that I had my bag with me, but, well, other than my textbooks and writing implements, there was nothing that could fight against the cold. Although, I did have a hand mirror. Foo-foo, should I burn the textbooks to make fire? That'd surely keep me warm. In the unlikely event of a fire, someone might come to save me. A tiny amount of light was spilling from the upper vent, something which I could reflect with the mirror. However, after relentlessly trying for about an hour, no fire was produced. It seemed that only experts could light a fire with such a tool. While doing so, the sun went down. It was getting darker and darker. Even if I tried to study, I would barely be able to see a thing. I had no choice but to sleep. But I might catch a cold again. When I hugged my bag, wishing that it'd keep me warm. I have a pretty friend. I wasn't able to return it. Looking at the item reminded me of the day I had requested the annulment of my engagement. I felt awkward. After burying my nose in the clumsily made stuffed rabbit for a long time, I embraced it tightly. "Won't you sleep with me?" I lied down with my bag as a pillow. My small friend gave warmth to cheeks. I wasn't lonely, because. Hence, it comes as a surprise to me. No, you really should be surprised. You're trapped. You're being confined. Imprisoned. Anyway, be more scared. You're expressive today. Even if I were to compliment him, the god wouldn't listen to me. On the contrary, he took out a blanket from somewhere and wrapped it around me while I was on a chair. Then, he rushed to brew some hot tea. The dream world was neither hot nor cold, but how does this make sense? Nevertheless, I was happy. I was grateful for the cup of tea. The scent of ginger was both tingling and pleasant. I smiled involuntarily. I mean, I can still meet God in my dreams. What? Because of that, there's no reason for me to feel lonely. The god suddenly paused. Oh my, his face is bright red. Well, I pretended I was too immersed in drinking the delicious black tea. I drank it in the blink of an eye. Would you like to have another? When I nodded, God regained his composure and poured me a second cup of tea. However, he seemed more worried as usual. Don't you have a test tomorrow morning? If you don't get out by then. Do you have any cinnamon sticks? I also want some honey. I do, more importantly. I poured some honey into the cup. Afterwards, I gently mixed it with a cinnamon stick. While gracefully enjoying the scent and sweetness, God exhaled a loud sigh. Liar. What are you talking about? I didn't really think that I was a liar. God puffed his cheeks. You aren't lonely because you have that child, right? That child. Speaking of which, I wondered why that stuffed animal had been placed on the desk. It was an ugly stuffed animal left there by His Highness Sazangel. It was a cluttered stuffed doll that had its eyes re-sewn. To word it better, it totally seemed handmade. I dared hug the stuffed animal. Are you perhaps jealous? That's not it. Why would I be jealous? You wish that this stuffed animal was you. What? When I responded as such, God suddenly stopped moving. It was quite interesting. I wanted to repeat my sentence, but there were times when even I got curious. For a god like you to be jealous of such a thing, aren't you adorable? Like I said, I'm not. That's not the issue. After I had stared at him, God finally relented. It's one of your precious memories, isn't it? What? Isn't this merely something His Highness Sazangel forgot? Wasn't it a gift you gave him back when you were children? What? I could only stare at the god. He seemed as if he was being pinched by something. Right, he had golden eyes. They were as mesmerizing as the evening's first star. Regardless, I couldn't afford to swoon at the moment. Why, you don't remember? When asked whether or not I remembered, I examined my memory. I made such a clumsy thing. No, I couldn't deny the possibility. After all, the Queen was particularly dissatisfied at my embroidery and sewing, to the extent that she once said, "It's already a miracle you haven't stabbed your finger." Well, even without sewing skill, I could still become a queen. Anyway, did I give such a stuffed doll to His Highness? As I pondered that, God let out a sigh. No way, you truly don't remember. Not at all. It might be because you actually wanted to throw it away. What does that mean? The god answered when I appealed with my eyes. I think you said it about 5 times back then. You asked the first prince to abandon the idea. To His Highness. Me, such a thing. After all, the other party was still a crown prince. For a mere duke's daughter to insist on such a thing. Maybe I did. Indeed. You threw a tantrum. Cute, don't you think? Again, I couldn't deny the possibility. I could only laugh. As of the present, I was a patient person. When I was little, though, I seemed to have thrown tantrums as according to my age. My saying, "Please throw it away," back then might not be all that strange. A patient person? You? Reading my mind is shameless. The timing couldn't be more accurate. Perhaps, the god thought he had grasped my weakness. In that case, I had an idea, too. Pervert. It's not like I see you when you're naked. God's face immediately turned red. It was 100 years too early for him to make fun of me. After all, if it was only that much, I wouldn't be swayed. Well, that concluded my punishment towards the god. I should return to the main topic. But why, even though I should have disposed of it? Why are you asking me? You should have asked him directly. However, God suddenly turned away. I didn't want him to suddenly clam up. Can you suddenly not get in a bad mood just because I recalled it? I'm not in a bad mood. I just thought that I mustn't spoil you too much. Oh, dear. Since when did God become so amazing? I've already been amazing since the beginning, for I am God. Speaking of which, that was the case. It was easy to forget that fact, considering how casually we treated each other. Still, regardless of how he acted, he was still a god. Wait, that wasn't important as of the present. Before that, there was something more pressing. I toyed with the stuffed animal. Should I just throw it away? I think you should cherish it. Are you still in a bad mood? However, the god seemed serious. Considering that you're going to die in a few days, you just don't want to leave any traces of yourself behind, right? At least, that's what people usually say. I merely wanted to be rid of the reminder to my shameful past. Well, either way is fine. Afterwards, God stood up while saying, "It's about time." That was all for today. I had more work to do in reality. Do your best on the exam. Of course. Light shone in the white world. Someone was calling me. Lelouche. Lelouche. How many times was that? 5 days remaining. Lelouche. Lelouche. As I hazily opened my eyes, dazzling light was pouring through the door that should have been closed. The gold prince who wore the radiance of the morning sun as a halo was just too dazzling. Ah, good morning, Your Highness Sazangil. That isn't what you're supposed to say at such a time, foo-foo, but greetings are the basis of everything. His Highness Sazangil supported my back. I gently corrected my posture and asked him, "Thank you for your assistance. What time is it now? Have I missed the exam? If it's the follow-up exam, there's still time. Before that, let's get you examined. There's no need to worry. I won't die, yet." What kind of joke is that? It wasn't a joke, but a fact. I got up quickly and attempted to move my body. I had slept in a cold and hard place. Therefore, I was sore. Still, I had a good night's sleep. My head was clear. There was nothing wrong with it. Then, I shall take the follow-up exam. Let me thank you later. No matter how much I studied, there'd be no point if I didn't take the exam. I tried to rush out, but my arm was pulled. Wait, why does Lelouche have this? He showed me the pink rabbit, the friend I had spent the night with. It truly was disproportionate to the beauty of the crown prince, yet His Highness Sazangil firmly held the ugly doll. I involuntarily diverted my gaze. You dropped it on the day you came to visit me. I'm sorry that I didn't return it as soon as possible. Then, can you please throw it away? I won't. Lelouche did her best to make it, but it's as ugly as a garbage. It's my treasure. No matter what Lelouche said, I won't abandon it. Why was he getting angry? The person who made it said it was garbage. Thus, it was decided that it was garbage. Even so, the opening bell rang. I couldn't wait any longer. I combed my slightly damp black hair that had been left unkept overnight. If you say that, then have it your way. I need to go. The exam, do your best. The corners of my mouth rose. I won't smear your highness face with mud. I completed my follow-up tests. I was given 30 minutes for each subject. Those who had failed multiple subjects had to report to that classroom. I couldn't help but wonder if there was always one such person every semester. Among them, I finished early. As such, I still had time to attend my classes. It was when I was about to go find His Highness Sazangil. Lady Lelouche. Good morning, Lumiere. Why is she going out of her way to call me? Moreover, where was the formal greeting? The moment I reprimanded her about it, Lumiere hurriedly curtsied me. I'm sorry. Well, it seems to be an urgent matter. I wondered what had happened. Why are you in such a hurry? Please come with me. Then, she roughly pulled my arm. It couldn't be helped. We went to the place where His Highness Sazangil always proposed to me before our classes began. A crowd had gathered there. In the middle of it, His Highness Sazangil was making a ruckus that day as well. All of you, what's the meaning of this? Not only did you cover Lelouche in mud, you also dared confine her. Are you that eager to be beheaded? He's truly angry. I didn't know what to retort anymore. His wrath had reached a level where he was threatening his surroundings with decapitation. Even as the candidate for the future king, wasn't that overkill? Involuntarily, I whispered to Lumiere. Could it be, you want me to stop him? It's better to stop him, isn't it? Well, honestly, I didn't want to get involved. But, perhaps, at the very least, I was aware that he was angry for my sake. Even so, it was troublesome. I didn't like it. I didn't really like studying, either. This was supposed to be a day where I was finally freed from studying, one where I could enjoy a sense of refreshment. Instead, immediately after that, I was told to not only stop His Highness, but to also reconcile with all my classmates. It was when I was about to sigh, saying that I still wanted to enjoy myself with everyone in the class. "I'm sorry, make way, please." From the other side of my rambunctious classmates, a familiar voice echoed. My classmates split in two to make way. While apologizing, the Silver Prince passed with a cart. It was truly a surreal sight. Moreover, the scent that drifted from the cart. The sea, maybe I should have gone visit it again. Even His Highness Sazengil was surprised. "Zephield, what are you doing?" "Ah, this is Lelouche's reward." "Lelouche's reward?" She refused my offer, but accepted Zephield's. Don't get me wrong. I wanted him to pay more attention to the contents of the cart. Now that it had arrived, it was a different story. His Highness Sazengil was still complaining, "It's unfair. I'm Lelouche's fiancé." When I saw my classmates trying to dissolve, I knew that it was my cue to start. "It'll be wise for you to stay back, Lumiere." Phew. Then, I approached the royal siblings. They both said my name, but instead of answering, I rolled up my sleeves. The cart was overflowing with mud. When I put my hands inside, it felt cool and refreshing. Lelouche." I smiled to His Highness Sazengil, before proceeding to press a handful of mud to his face. "Ha!" For a moment, it was as if the concept of sound didn't exist in the world. There was only silence. Everyone froze. Only the Golden Prince, whose face was smeared with mud, was confused. It was as if nothing had happened. "Hey, Your Highness Sazengil, did you know? This is the latest beauty method. That is, through the use of mud. Beauty method. Indeed, I learned that mud contains a lot of beauty ingredients and is very good for the skin. The sea on the Asatida coast in the west is very beautiful, isn't it? I asked for it of His Highness Zephield. However, as I've been being placed under His Highness Sazengil's care on a daily basis, I'd like you to experience it first." Although His Highness Sazengil would occasionally get injured, his skin was white and unblemished. That fineness was unmatched by most ladies. In addition to his beautiful appearance, he was also the Gold Prince. Therefore, there was no need for him to undergo beauty treatment. Still, about half of what mentioned about was accurate. It was fine. An academic institution had actually reported that the mud from Asatida Coast had high beauty effect. Albeit, it hadn't been exactly commercialized, as of yet. I was merely promoting it. The research itself had been started because people of all ages, be it men or women, who lived near the Asatida Coast had beautiful skin. Well, aside from that prank, has your head cooled down? As I smiled at His Highness Sazengil, the black mud clinging to his face began to drip onto the cobblestones. How generous of you, Lelouche. You foo-foo, even though I said, I won't smear mud on your face. I'm truly sorry for that. By the way, I answered everything correctly. The teacher graded me immediately afterwards. While showing off an elegant curtsy, I smirked. The game is on. Ah, never had I had so much fun. I thought such as I proceeded to throw the mud at Duchess Lala Fable, to whom I had also been indebted to until now. Of course, mud was formless. As such, even if I were to throw it wholeheartedly, I wasn't able to muster a clean hit against her face. Instead, it struck her chest. Forgive me. I could hear the grief-stricken cry of Lala. What are you doing? Pardon me, but wasn't it Lala who've taught me of this beauty method? I approached Lala and wrapped my arm around hers. Isn't it useless to resist? Of course, I wasn't as skilled as my instructor. Nevertheless, I had trained every day. Then, as I forcibly dragged her towards the cart, "Close your mouth." I put my hands in the cart once again and pressed the mud onto her face. Actually, I wanted to just dunk her head into the mud. However, at the same time, I wanted to appear dignified. As such, I had no choice but to be patient. Lala, along with the classmates around her, screamed. Oh, Lumiere ran away. Well, I'll tell her all about it later. As it was, I had my hands full with Lala. Rejuvenating, isn't it? Enjoy it to your heart content. Are you stupid? Do you think you can just? Once again, I pressed more mud against Lala's indignant face. My smile didn't break. What are you talking about? Even His Highness Sazangil was pleased. What? Do you have holes for eyes? Where and how does His Highness appear to be happy? Then, would His Highness like to behead me, as well? I turned towards His Highness Sazangil, who was watching the situation in a daze. He still hadn't wiped the mud off his face. Instead, he opted to let out such a foolish cry. Well, that's... Hey, Your Highness, aren't you having fun? When I asked with a smile, the future king of the kingdom of Lapicenta gulped and nodded. Ah yes, pardon me, I was bedazzled due to my misunderstanding. For you to throw mud at one another, it seems that you have a particularly strong bond with your classmates of the UN class. Yes, it's true. We are good friends, aren't we, Lala? I was given his consent. I hoped she'd reflect upon her profane acts. I also hoped that she'd be content with the mud, as I was chasing her. By the way, I talked to my mother and father about this beauty method recommended by Lala. Incidentally, she said she was going to attend a tea party at a particular salon. I'm sure my mother will bring it up as one of their topics of discussion. Of course, the house where my mother had been invited to was the Fable family. She mentioned that the Queen was also being invited. Lala, I've gone this far for you. But, it wasn't like I merely say, just tell Her Majesty that you want to become His Highness Fiancé, to the point that you'd harass Lelouche Elkid. Of course, if you have the courage to declare that. If you do, I shall introduce you to the royal siblings, as you have the courage to love them. Unfortunately, I knew that'd be a useless thing to ask from Lala. I'm honored that Lelouche liked it so much. I'd love to hear your feedback. When she awkwardly admitted her defeat, His Highness rolled up his sleeves as well. I have to thank Lelouche for taking care of me on a daily basis, too. Therefore, I'd like to participate. Everyone froze on the spot. For me, it didn't matter if His Highness wanted to join in the fun. There was no reason to refuse. Anyway, his face was already black. He had also already begun throwing mud at the boys. Is he the kind of gentleman that won't aim at female students? Then, I'd assume responsibility for that. Your Highness Sirfield, please distribute the contents of the cart to people over there. What? No, I don't want to get dirty. His Highness Sirfield backed off awkwardly. What? Despite His Highness Sazangil's excitement, his younger brother won't be participating? I purposefully gasped. What do you mean? Even after I went to such lengths to deepen the friendship of the class, too. Deepen, you say? Is it okay for the ace of the swordsmanship club to be so lackluster? It was when I tried to complain. Lady Lelouche, the one who ran up to me was Lumiere, whom I thought had fled at first glance. Her coral hair fluttered as she showed me some ladles with a brilliant smile. I borrowed them from the cafe's kitchen. Can we use them? As expected of Lumiere. Thank you for your compliment. That was the best compliment I had ever bestowed upon Lumiere. I didn't know who had bad taste anymore. Meanwhile, His Highness Sazangil flung a bucket of mud at the boys, laughing as if he wanted to show them who the reborn Demon King was. The ladies desperately ran away. There were also some who tried to retaliate by throwing mud back. It was when everyone was happily throwing mud. It seemed that I had slipped on some mud at my feet. I fell on my butt. Lelouche, are you all right? A muddy hand was extended towards me. Looking up, I could see His Highness Sazangil. His appearance was no longer that of the Gold Prince. I laughed aloud at his muddy appearance. Ahaha, Your Highness is covered in mud. It's fun, it's as if I've returned to the past. A long time ago. That was right. We were both betrothed and childhood friends. There may have been such a time. Indeed, I'm having fun. I was pulled up by his large palm. Then, with a smile, I started filling the ladle with mud again. Chapter 4, Idle Talk. The Monologue of a Former Swindler. I was second by nature. Zerfield Louis Lapicenta. Among the people, I was the second prince whom was commonly known as the fascinating Silver Prince. The Silver Prince. It was because I had silver hair, hence the title. My older brother was the Gold Prince, while I was the Silver Prince as I was second in the place. It was an easy-to-understand irony. Because I was the second prince, I had no fiancé by nature. I had always thought of it as unfair, but whenever I'd complain about it, my older brother would always say, "Instead, you can choose who to marry." Isn't that a blessing? What utter nonsense. As someone who always had fun with his fiancé, what right did he have to say that? He'd always speak about, today, Lelouch, or, yesterday, Lelouch was over and over again. Such a bird brain. My older brother's fiancée, namely Lelouch Elkidge, was also an odd girl. While of similar age as me, her appearance was uncommon. Her mother was a beauty who was also known as the exotic beauty. Lelouch strongly resembled her mother. Both her eyes and hair were black. When I first saw her, I thought that she was scary. However, she must have been accustomed to being treated like a weirdo. Thus, she smiled at me. "Nice to meet you, I'm Lelouch Elkidge. Pleased to make you acquaintance." Even if she mispronounced her name, I fell in love with her who never stopped smiling. I was sure that it was love at first sight. She was a strong, dignified, noble. My impression of that beautiful girl hadn't changed. Nevertheless, around the age of 8, I realized that she was in fact a weirdo. Despite having already begun her princess education, she'd still openly talk to me when my mother and older brother had yet to arrive. She was advised to respect my older brother for he was the future king. However, I was the second prince and of the same age as her. Still, she only used honorifics for my older brother, and not me. Those close, special feelings were more enjoyable than anything else. Tchem, where's His Highness Sazengil? If it's my older brother, he's being reprimanded by his swordsman instructor. What about your Highness Zerfield? Well, I'm a spare for my brother. As such, my education isn't as intensive. Beside, with a waist as slender as mine, I didn't think I'd benefit much from the swordsman instructor for a while longer. To keep my brother's face, I didn't say anything unnecessary. To try to kill time, I talked with my brother's fiancé. Rather, shouldn't we do more than that? Shall we eat sweets? If I recall correctly, the Southern Lord brought me some salted sweets. That's interesting, but Your Highness Zerfield is free right now, aren't you? Well, I had a bad feeling. I just couldn't shake the negative sensation. Sure enough, she showed a perfect smile. Do you know what the Queen's weaknesses are? What? In short, she wanted to vent her daily frustration. Not to mention, my mother was the cause of it all. For her to admit that to my face, I had to admire her courage. I'm scared of the Queen, but if I can scare her and make her scream, I don't think I'll be scared anymore. Although, I have never seen anything scarier than my own mother. Even if she were to ask about her weakness. Oh, that's right. I believe she's lamenting being that she has gotten fat, lately. Because of that, she can't fit into the dress she likes. I see. Then I should do something that'll make her thinks that she's fatter. Maybe, I could tighten the waist of her dresses. While elegantly eating the sweets I had introduced, she pondered in all seriousness. I don't think that's a good idea. Lelouch, are you good at sewing? Can you think of any other weaknesses? I also thought that part of her was adorable. It couldn't be helped. Even if she was seriously contemplating on pulling a prank on my mother, I just couldn't get angry at her. Then, Lelouch stared at me. What is it? If she stares at me like that, I'll blush. What's wrong? Your Highness Zerfield's eating appearance is beautiful, isn't it? Well, not as beautiful as yours, Lelouch. Although I wasn't made to study etiquette as much as Lelouch, I was still a prince. Despite being the second prince, I had many opportunities to eat in public. Therefore, both my instructors and mother taught me manners. Looking from my head to my toes, Lelouch clapped and said, "Right. Hey, Your Highness Zerfield, why don't you wear my dress for a moment?" What? How did this happen? Before I could regret it, it was already too late. When did she master putting on dresses and wigs? As a young lady, it'd be a problem if I couldn't put on a dress in an emergency without the help of a maid. I haven't heard much about that. Anyway, my slender waistline was the cause of it all. Because of it, I was able to fit into Lelouch's dress. Also, why is she dressing up as a castle maid? While grinning, Lelouch also proudly showed me a black wig. Then, while leaning on my shoulder, Lelouch smiled. How cute, Zephiel-chan. The sight of Lelouch, who was wearing a more lackluster dress than usual, hurt my heart. I also wasn't happy by the compliment. But when I sighed, another tragedy happened. Now, it's my turn. Lelouch took off the dress she was wearing underneath her dignified, original dress, leaving her underwear in plain sight. Gya! My scream echoed throughout the royal castle. After that, despite my scream, we still exchanged clothes and went to surprise my mother together. After receiving a 3-hour sermon from my mother together, Lelouch complained to me. For you to scream at the sight of a maiden in her underwear, that's just terrible. Besides, it's just a chemise, it's not that strange. Well, I'm sorry that I shouted. I don't even know the difference. But instead of replying, I just nodded. Before I noticed it, she was laughing. Fufu, today was fun, let's do it again sometime. Ah, no. The expression she was making was truly adorable, but it was already evening. I was tired. Looking out in the window, my older brother was still confronting his swordsmanship instructor in the courtyard. It seemed that the instructor had already forgiven him. Then, when my brother tried to land a blow, he fell. I asked out of curiosity, Lelouch, do you always do this at home? Dressing up? Yes, and other acts of mischief. I'd like to do the same when my little brother, Rufus, gets a little bigger. Poor Rufus. At that time, I'll comfort you as a senior. Lelouch, who didn't know of my inner thoughts, was counting off. Thinking about it, I tried pulling out some of my father's hair when he was asleep, ate the sweets my mother was hiding, pretended to be a baby and played with Rufus' toys. I also pretended to be a maid and helped with cleaning and washing. Also, I tried climbing one of the trees, but it's difficult, you know? I'm sorry, I've never climbed a tree before, so... Wow, she did a lot more than I expected. Upon hearing the secrets of Lelouch that I didn't know, I went and asked for more. Does anyone else know? Ah, about that, keep it a secret from His Highness Sazangil, alright? He's my fiancé. It'd be a problem if he hates me. What's that? It was alright for her to be hated by me, but not by my brother. Despite that, Lelouch closed her eyes and placed her fingers against her cherry-colored lips. It's a secret between us two, so don't tell anyone. It can't be helped. In the end, 2 years later, my older brother would also chance upon her strange habits. Still, I was the first to know. As such, I knew Lelouch the best. That was what I liked to think. Nevertheless, my sense of superiority only lasted for a few years. At that time, we were 13 years old. Lelouch would be having her social debut next month. Meanwhile, my own debut would occur approximately 3 months later. For the sake of her final training before her debut, Lelouch came to stay at the royal palace. From that time on, she wouldn't act informal with me anymore. To everyone, she always acted like a proper noble lady. While nothing was wrong with that, I felt lonely. On the morning of the second day, Lelouch's eccentricity was revealed to my brother. He went to protest to my mother. As I thought, Lelouch is overly stressed by mother's education. Afterwards, he even summoned a doctor for her. I feel wronged. Shortly after her physical condition was examined, Lelouch became very angry. Even if her phrasing was formal, I noticed that she was openly expressing herself. Does he honestly think I have gone mad? Don't you think it's terrible? What's wrong with wanting to dive through a ring of fire? Ah. Well, I think you should refrain from doing such dangerous acts. That's why I'm practicing from the basics. That's not the problem, here. I pulled a round chair over with a bitter smile and sat beside her bed. What? Does Lelouch want to impress my brother through a display of acrobatics? That's right. After all, His Highness Sazangil has never witnessed anything like that before. Isn't that a waste? Is that all? Also, what's wrong with trying to improve your physical abilities? There are no drawbacks to it. I mean, what if I get assaulted by a beast? What if the castle is set on fire? Surely, my training would be put to good use. Lelouch, What is your true purpose behind all this? I asked her with sarcasm, but she proudly answered. In this word, you only succeed or you learn. If you have the opportunity to learn something new, isn't it the responsibility of someone as high-ranking as me to do my best? As expected of the Queen of Hearts, your ambition is so good, it brings tears to my eyes. Foo-foo, I'm honored to be complimented. I realized when I saw Lelouch's impeccable smile. She knew it was a sarcasm and triumphed over me with her last retort. As I thought, I can't win against Lelouch. However, her mood didn't seem like it could be fixed just by playing with me. That's right, I can't believe His Highness Sazengil. He went out of his way to summon a doctor for me, without any reservation. That just shows how important Lelouch is to him, doesn't it? That. Well, perhaps. Oh, how cute. Despite pouting, her cheeks had turned slightly red. What's that? I kind of didn't like it. Even if it's a little mean of me, it won't lead to anything serious, right? Doesn't my brother think too lowly of Lelouch? Tchem. He always protests about your education against our mother. I believe my brother must see you as his sister, instead of someone of an equal standing. Otherwise, I couldn't think of any reason why he'd be so overly worried. His sister. Her dark eyes widened immensely. Towards that Lelouch, I dared to continue to speak gently, as if to advise her. But that may be unavoidable. After all, my brother has been watching over you since you were little. So, why don't you show him how independent you are through your social debut? Besides, because he spends so much time with Lelouch, his grades at school are suffering. As such, for my brother's sake. There's no need to say anything further. Although Lelouch cut off my words, she didn't seem angry. She just lowered her face in contemplation. I'm sorry, I want to be left alone for a while. Therefore, can you leave? Ah, of course. I turned on my heels. Yes, think slowly. And give me a good show. If not, isn't it unfair? The two most wonderful people of my life had always been close with each other. Meanwhile I, who always had eyes for her, could only watch from the side. I laughed a little at the dignified profile that was in serious thought. Afterwards, I gently closed the door. Then, I saw it. The back of my older brother, who was shocked when Lelouch suggested that they should put some distance between themselves. It was more refreshing and pleasant than I had imagined. The show was getting better and better. On the other hand, from the time I made my social debut, the number of matchmaking stories revolving around me continued to increase. Apparently, my parents wanted to decide on my fiancé before my enrollment. It sounded troublesome. Well, my numbers of girl friends increased every time I went to a dinner party. I was sure that they were worried. My first candidate for the matchmaking was Lala Fable, the daughter of a duke. As she was of the same stature as Lelouch, there shouldn't have been any problems. Rather than a foreign lady, I seemed to be being advised to pick a domestic one. In a sense, it was a matter of balancing. Lelouch was the representative of the foreign faction, while Lala was a representative of the domestic faction. I was sure that my parents had settled upon such a decision. But I personally disliked Lala. It was because compared to Lelouch, she was a lowly existence to me. Why do you loathe it so much? What's so awful about Ms. Lala? I decided to answer my father's question. Because she resembles me. That girl was quite haughty. The other day, I saw her basking in pleasure as she bullied a lady of lower stature than her. It wasn't something that Lelouch would do. Really, her ugliness was just like mine. She was jealous of what others had. Then, instead of challenging herself to improve and fight, she just harassed people from behind the scenes. How wicked. Hence, I lied that day as well. I don't particularly hate Ms. Lala. I just want to learn more about other women. Is it because you're young? Do you want to play around? Well, it may be unavoidable for my words to be taken that way. After all, the world consists of men and women. Meanwhile, the only women my brother knows are his mother and Lelouch. If so, in the future, as a supporter of my brother, I want to familiarize myself more with the thoughts of women and attain broader insight. As usual, you have a smart mouth. Is my father aware of something? But it's part of the reason, though. I hung my head. I, Zaffield Lewis Lapicenta, promise you that I'll decide on a spouse upon graduating from the academy. So until then, please give me an opportunity to deepen my insight. Once we graduated, Lelouch would officially marry my brother. Then, my faint first love would be over. After that, I was sure that I'd spend empty days watching over the two happy people with a woman who wasn't Lily beside me. My father sighed at me. All right, but do be careful. The number of ladies frustrated by you has been increasing day by day. Of course. Well, while saying that, I tried to persuade other girls while keeping only Lelouch in my sights. My older brother was a bit lackluster. I didn't think he was a bad person. Nevertheless, he wasn't very tactful. Of course, he also had many talents. My older brother was an honest, hard-working, and kind-hearted man. He was capable enough to garner the people's approval, which led to earning their support. However, I was slightly doubtful. Should the future ruler of our kingdom be decided solely through receiving a sweet evaluation and the privilege of being born earlier? After all, wouldn't that kind of person be taken advantage of by a bad person like me? Therefore, I messed with him. I did it on a whim. It happened around the time when I was about to be enrolled in the academy. As traveling back and forth between the dormitory and the royal castle every day would be difficult, we went to our mansion in the territory of Elkage. Casually, I said it at dinner. At the academy, how about you keep your distance from Lelouch? Why? I'm only given a brief respite from the castle. This is my only opportunity to spend time with her. Of course, I was aware of that. Knowing my brother, he'd stay with her from morning until evening. In the morning, would she ride in a carriage arranged by my brother? Then, would she be sent home by him? He even confirmed whether or not he would be allowed to rent out a section of the cafeteria for a year. That was probably so he could spend his lunch break with her. Well, I wasn't going to let him do that. This is her only opportunity to be free from the castle, too. I'm sure the moment she sees my brother's face, she'll be heavily reminded of her responsibilities as the future queen. Go on. My brother's complexion had changed. He was obviously shocked. Although he wasn't as clingy as he was 3 years ago, it still annoyed me. He'd often spoke of Charlotte and her eccentricities. But my brother, because he had to keep his distance at the castle, he'd surely try to stick with her at school. My brother was a simple person. I hated and loved that side of him. So, if you were to let her go, if you were to refrain from meeting Lelouch as much as possible, wouldn't she be able to spread her wings? I'm sure she'd love to have fun with her friends as well. You can't monopolize Lelouch. I see, what you said is sensible. But what if something were to happen to Lelouch? I won't be able to help her immediately. Coincidentally, I'll be in the same class as Lelouch. If anything were to happen, I shall help her. What, is my brother jealous of me? No way. My brother wiped his mouth with a napkin and spoke. That's not true. I'm sure if I were to entrust her to Zaffield, she'd be all right. While Lelouch enjoys her student life, I shall work hard to become the future king. Haha, don't overexert yourself. That stupid older brother of mine. So as to not rattle the silverware, I suppressed my laughter. If my brother intended to devote himself to public affairs, I would lend him my assistance. I'd speak to our father about how motivated he was, and see more get added to his workload. I wondered if I could get him do mine as well. Even if he found out, he'd surely say, it can't be helped. Isn't that so, my kind older brother? One day, some time after we had enrolled. So, how was Lelouch today? Did she have a good time? Yes, she appears to be on good terms with the daughter of Count Remmel. They were conversing happily. Of course, that was a lie. In all actuality, Media Remmel seemed to want to curry favor with Lelouch. Lelouch, who disliked that kind of thing, refused without any hesitation. In the end, Media decided to collude with Lala of the Fable family instead. The Fable family belonged to an opposing faction. Due to the relationship between their houses, Lala had always been hostile to Lelouch. I was looking forward to the future. My older brother, who wasn't aware of the truth, was happy with my false information regarding Lelouch. That's just how Lelouch is. She doesn't care about titles. She just wants a lifelong friend. Speaking of friends who don't care about their titles, I heard that there's a person who has recently become acquainted with my older brother. Who are you talking about? Oh, so he wasn't aware that they were on good terms? Even though they were together every morning? Was he more obsessed in fixing that rag than being taught by her? Perhaps he didn't even remember her name. I'm talking about the Baron's daughter. Ah, do you mean Lumiere? She's the only daughter of Baron Alban, the historian. What kind of person is she? I wondered what would he say. Expecting my brother, an unconventional idiot, to badmouth her would be too far-fetched. If he were to say, she's lovely and the right person to be my playmate, I'd be sure to spice that statement a little. But as expected, my older brother's answer couldn't be taken advantage of. In terms of manners, she's a little clumsy. But she's a refreshing conversation partner. She's sensitive to those around her. In truth, she might be quite talented. I'm sure if her manners were to be polished, she'd become a splendid lady. Was that how my older brother perceived her? What a good and decent little girl. Then, let's give some advice to my kind-hearted older brother. How's the stuffed animal? I'm having a difficult time fixing it. I was planning to finish it and show it to Lelouche this semester, but it's tough. Our long vacation will be coming soon. Didn't you try to not meet Lelouche? That's right, you didn't try to interfere with Lelouche's wonderful and enjoyable student life, right? In reality, Lelouche didn't have any proper friends. She continued living in solitude, similar to a wallflower. The high-ranking ladies were likely following the orders of their parents. Unless they were foolish like my brother, they wouldn't see past her status. This sullen fiancé of hers, ignorant to that, was puffing his cheeks like a child. I want a reward, he said. By getting in the way of Lelouche. Sometimes, it's okay to spoil myself. I've put up with it. I've endured not seeing Lelouche for a long time. Yes, that was right. After all, I had to listen to his frustration every day. Did he take my advice and refrained from meeting his beloved fiancée? Even at a party where he was supposed to accompany her, he pretended that everything was fine so as to not create any rumors, right? Such was my advice as a younger brother who was good at treating women. During that time, the precious item he cherished tore. My older brother wanted to use said keepsake as a reason to meet her. That was true, you did your best, you moron. Therefore, I advised my beloved brother once again. Then, at that time, bring Lumiere with you. Why? Did you hear the rumors? They said that Lumiere is a candidate to be your mistress, and that you favor her. I only have eyes for Lelouche. Of course, my older brother would say that. The actual rumors were so much worse. The rumors spoke plans to annul his engagement with Lelouche before ultimately assassinating her. Although, well, I adjusted those rumors before they could enter Lelouche's ears. Well, rumors are rumors. But women are sensitive to them, right? While she may look stubborn, Lelouche might be concerned by them. Even though in reality, nothing is happening. The world of women sure is rough. Before that, didn't you have an argument with your lover back then? What did you do to resolve it? Of course, we solved it ourselves. I just listened to her side of the story. Of course, when I heard it, I was a bit discouraged. However, it was plain anxiety on my part. In the end, a misunderstanding is a misunderstanding. It's best to discuss it directly with everyone involved. I understand. I was truly a kind younger brother. He was capable of giving me such an answer. This me, who fanned the flames. Therefore, as a reward to this bystander, wouldn't you present a spectacular sight? What did you do to my Lelouche? As soon as I returned to the mansion, my older brother hit me with a clumsy punch. Thinking it was a good opportunity to hit him, I fought back. My older brother flew away. I didn't mean to put so much strength into my blow. Well, it couldn't be helped. While pretending to be confused, I apologized. Sorry. According to my lie, everything was supposed to be my brother's fault. Why would you blame me? With all the good intentions in my heart, I gave you advice. I'm sorry, I was upset. No, it's all right. Rather, is it true that Lelouche requested to annul our engagement? Why, that's... As his kind-hearted younger brother, I reached out to my older brother. But as expected, my brother wasn't as tactless as I thought. He might be aware that I was behind everything. In fact, he had gradually stopped asking for my advice and had been acting on his own. Although, as it was already too late. For him to keep pretending to not see it, I thought that was one of his bad habits. My brother clenched his fist. He seemed to be angry. Even so, I sympathized with the fact that the dress my brother had given to Lelouche was given to someone else. My older brother was unusually out of it. It'd be troublesome if he were to commit suicide as it was. Thus, I sent him back to the mansion. When I tried to hold his shoulder, he shook it off. "Ha! I'm sorry, but it's fine. I was told to annul our engagement. I'm sure that to her, my present was in the way." Brother. I wondered if he'd give up on Lelouche now that he had understood. I was stupid to think that for even a moment. Zerfield, I'm not going to give up on Lelouche. Even if it'll cause her to despise you even more. Yes, even if it means that. I also won't give up on you. What? I didn't understand what he meant. My older brother was staring straight at me. Regardless of how much you despise me, regardless of the extent of your misdeeds, I believe in you. I'm your brother and always will be. Keep that in mind. With that said, my older brother returned to the mansion alone. I truly didn't understand. Did he truly have the same eye color as me? If so, why did his eyes give off such a strong color? I returned to the mansion and picked up a mirror. Lapis lazuli, it was the color that I abhorred the most in the world. As of the present, I was watching my muddy brother and Lelouche getting scolded by the teacher. What kind of situation is this? Almost everyone in the UN class, a first-year class, was covered in mud. In the meantime, I was sitting near the school gate. What the teacher was saying was right. The ladies who represent the people shouldn't be throwing mud outside of the academy building. That was no surprise. Even when the opening bell rang, no one stopped. Well, the two lead aristocrats kept throwing mud while laughing. Perhaps everyone thought they'd be forgiven, as well. It was the principal's turn to give a sermon. Lelouche Elkidge, why did you start doing this? Because it was necessary for us. What do you mean? Even after being made to sit upright on the stone pavement, Lelouche answered resolutely. The teacher flinched. Lelouche wasn't one to miss that opportunity. The teachers may be unaware, but you see, we have a feud. I come from a duke's house. Meanwhile, these respective two hail from the houses of a baron and a count. Due to the titles inherited from our parents, we inevitably have a hierarchical relationship. Of course, I'm well aware that the academy is trying to educate us to not judge people based on their status. Still, the teachers should know that is just a front. While we're spending our youth in the same academy, we have a feud precisely because of our statuses. However, if everyone were to be covered in mud like this, we will all be considered equal. We're all equally muddy. Finally, we're the definition of equal. The teacher couldn't argue against her overwhelmingly powerful sophistry. But eventually, the same teacher said, even if that's the case, it's too much. Yeah, do your best, teacher. I don't think Lelouche will reflect on this no matter what you say. At the same time, both my brother and Lelouche looked very happy. Why did they look so refreshed? Even though their entire bodies were covered with mud. Also, for them to giggle during the teacher's sermon. As expected, they felt zero remorse. I don't know anymore. I did hope my mother would get angry at them later, though. I'm truly frustrated. Why did they make up? After the trouble went through to screw their relationship up, too. At that time, a young lady meekly stood beside me. I was standing beside the cart I had used to deliver the mud. She was a petite lady with pretty coral hair, Baroness Lumiere Alban. Did I make a strange expression? The next second, she softly beckoned me. Your Highness Zerfield. What is it? Shouldn't you hurry to your classroom? It's not like you have to deal with this kind of thing. If you're worried about the physical well-being of my brother and the others, I shall inform you later. Other than me, she was the only one not dirty with mud. Upon giving Lelouche some ladles, she scurried off to a remote area to watch the situation unfold. Hence, She should be able to attend her classes normally. In the first place, she was in the choice class. Therefore, her classroom experience shouldn't be impacted. Unlike me, whose classmates were all covered in mud, she could still leave with her dignity intact or even jeer at us. Because I'm interested. You're merely scared of your Lady Lelouch, right? Or rather, I want to learn how Lady Lelouch will overcome this adversity. Didn't she mean to say that the sight of Lelouch getting reprimanded was too interesting? I couldn't help but see the child Lelouch in her. When I suddenly burst with laughter, Lumiere's eyes went wide. As I thought, she truly resembles Lelouch. What's wrong? No, I merely thought that you're definitely Lelouch's disciple. While we were discussing such a thing, the teacher noticed us. The two over there. If you have time to run your mouths, shouldn't you be returning to your respective classes? However, soon, the teacher was dragged back into the debate starred by Lelouch, who refused to back down. Well, then, I wondered if I should also participate in the war for a bit. I raised a hand and innocently asked, "Teacher, isn't everyone in the class currently studying under the blue sky?" That's right. Today, we were merely studying under this blue sky about the nature of Western mud with our skin. Teacher, if you'd like, why don't you join us? Lelouch Elkid. Fufu, what is it, teacher? Ah, this place is entirely being run by Lelouch as of the moment. Next to Lelouch, who seemed to be enjoying herself from the beginning to end, my brother was peacefully taking a nap. He was sleeping very comfortably. Only I knew why. He had been staying up all night every night to prepare teaching materials for Lelouch's follow-up exams. I thought he'd finally catch some sleep yesterday, however, he stayed up to make memorandums for last-minute measures. Not to mention, this morning, I went to the Elkich family to see Lelouch to the academy only to learn she wasn't there. Her parents said she had stayed at Baron Alban's house with a friend. Of course, my older brother had heard nothing about it, and neither had Lumiere and Baron Alban. After questioning the people of the Count fable, we confirmed that it was indeed her who sent that false message to Lelouch's parents. Then, my brother went to fetch Lelouch as fast as he could. Afterwards, he even threw mud at everyone together with her. His falling asleep couldn't be helped. Are you aware of all the hardships my brother went through? Lelouch lined up more sophistry to the teacher. The teacher scratched his head before finally laughing with joy. Hey, Lelouch. Is it truly because you just want to have fun? Or was it to let my brother get some rest? Ah. I looked up at the sky. The beauty of the blue sky made me feel even worse. Everyone was told to go home that day. After all, if they were to enter the classroom in such state, I'd pity the cleaners. The next day. That day was supposed to be a holiday. In an empty classroom, Lelouch and my brother, who were forced to attend school, apologized in writing as per the teacher's instructions. The teacher wasn't that angry, though, and ended up compromising. The future king and queen reflected during the holiday. Certainly, they felt some ounce of shame. Even so, the two felt no remorse at all. They were having fun chatting while the composition paper laid before them. Ah, what have I done? As expected, in the end, all I could do was watch the two from a distance. Section. Ah, I feel like crap. But, it was like you said, I didn't know when to stop. Hey, Lelouch, where should I have given up? I still didn't know. Had I asked earlier, would you have given me an answer? Section. Audiobook by Masquerade at Masquerade Audiobooks. Chapter 5. They were a very dazzling 3 days. 3 days remaining. In the end, I pushed the teacher beyond her limits. I never thought that my days off would be spent writing letters of apology. Teacher, isn't this why your wrinkles haven't smoothed out in the slightest? All right, let's send her some beauty cream of my mother's favorite brand next week. At the same time, today was the last day off of my life. Of course, the place I would visit had already been decided. Then, Lumiere, do you remember why that dance party is going to be held the day after tomorrow? Yes, it's the annual party to celebrate the master painter André Oscar's masterpiece, The Nameless Sunset. He was a graduate of our academy. During his lifetime, André Oscar loved dancing. I was only given 100 days to educate Lumiere. At first, I wondered what would happen. However, as the girl in question answered, I began to notice that she had changed. To be honest, her knowledge was minimal. But that was fine, all she needed to do was to be confident in herself and keep her back straight. She already had the charm. Therefore, I'm sure you'll be able to overcome anything. Actually, I wanted to show her off in public a little more. Perhaps that'd boost her confidence. But I realized that was merely selfishness on my part. We were inside the study of Baron Alban. I had become accustomed to that place. While breathing in the scent of the paper into my chest, I asked the following question. All right, previously, I gave you a manuscript titled Nameless Confession. Upon reading it, what kind of person do you think Nameless is? A. Nameless is. My cat got her tongue. That was a book I had lent to Lumiere when she got sick. It felt like such a long time ago. Could it be you forgot the contents of the book? Oh, no, I do remember. I thought that he was a unique person, especially his ideas. You don't have to sugarcoat it. Tell me your honest opinion. When I urged her, she put a finger on her chin and averted her gaze. She should have fixed that habit of hers by now. Surely, the Queen would point it out sooner or later. All she had to do was not embarrass herself at the dance party 3 days later. She then spoke. Nameless lived about 1,500 years ago, didn't he? In the midst of the war, he lied about being a prince. Then, he took the lead in protecting a large number of people amidst a torrent of flaming arrows. He miraculously survived and was revered as a hero. But in the end, he was exiled. His fearless attitude gave people the courage to win the war. Regardless, no matter how heroic he was, the kingdom at that time was less flexible than it was at present. It was a mortal sin to pass oneself off as a member of the royal family. Thus, the man was stripped of his name and became the anonymous Nameless. For the rest of his life, he had to confess his sins to God at church. Nameless Confession is a compilation of narratives he had written in the confessional room of the church. There existed a passage. I merely wanted to protect the witch. I regret nothing. If there's something that I'm concerned about, is she laughing now? In the end, who was the witch that Nameless wanted to protect? Lumiere asked. She was said to be a princess at the time. In reality, she was a witch. It's a story from 1500 years ago. Nowadays, that something called magic can only be found in picture books. It's unreal. When I explained the general theory, I realized that Lumiere was giggling. After I glared at her, Lumiere wiped her tears. I'm sorry, I expected Lady Lelouche to believe in magic. Well, I'm sorry about that. Lumiere laughed aloud when I averted my gaze. Excuse me, Lumiere then said to me. But if Nameless did everything for the sake of protecting the witch, he's truly amazing. Amazing, because the witch seems to be a strong figure. Meanwhile, Nameless was a person with no special power. Objectively speaking, he should have been in the position of being protected. For him to miraculously survive those fire arrows, perhaps, the witch had helped him. Certainly, that'd be the case if the woman he intended to protect truly possessed a mysterious power. In fact, what he did may have been pointless. That woman might have been able to manage on her own, regardless of whether or not he risked his life. Rather, as Lumiere speculated, his life might have been saved by her, instead. This was mentioned in a historical book that you haven't read yet. It was an ancient book. Only those with a penchant for historical facts would touch that book. It was said that Nameless distracted a group of enemy soldiers to save the nearby witch who was about to be hunted. It was said that Nameless merely partook in the war to buy time for the witch. At that time, black hair was considered a bizarre thing. I'm not sure if she truly had any mysterious power, though. The fact that black hair was regarded as a heretical color in ancient Lapicenta was recounted in many books. Even in my mother's homeland, which was still considered a foreign country. But, in the present day, black-haired people were no longer discriminated against in Lapicenta. I was grateful. Had I been born during that time, I'd be having a more difficult life. In truth, I had always been fond of Nameless who had tried to protect that witch. If the supposed hero, Nameless, partook in war for the sake of one woman, instead of the people, wouldn't he be the more selfish, but also kinder than anyone else. At my nonchalant question, Lumiere tilted her head. Is he? I feel like he's a little too selfish. Fufu, it's fine if you don't agree. It's fun sharing our interpretations with each other. As I thought, she disagrees. A long time ago, when I spoke to the Queen about it, she said, "What's so good about this buffoon? If he just wanted to protect a woman, there'd have been a better way. This is an epic tale, and not a romance story." I was shocked at the time, but now that I recalled it, the memory felt both precious and nostalgic. Because, even if the Queen disapproved, I couldn't stop falling for the hero, and thought of the tale as a romance story. Even if everyone disagrees, I still think that he's wonderful. Even if it was considered selfish of him. Even if he made a foolish choice. To be able to sacrifice everything for just one person, nothing was more amazing than that. Even if the choice had cost him both his life and honor, even if it was a foolish choice, the more I found him endearing. Lumiere couldn't comprehend my excitement. However, she immediately smiled. That's right. It's an honor to be loved by Lelouche. Fufu, I'm glad I can talk to Lumiere like this. It'd have been too annoying if she were to make a fuss about it. Baron Alban gently knocked on the door. For a break, why don't the two of you enjoy some tea? I've just received delicious sweets. Gladly. I responded without a moment's delay, which caused Lumiere to giggle as she stood up. Let's go to the guest room, Lady Lelouche. She pulled my hand with hers. While I was busy having snacks as a guest of the Alban family, Lumiere spoke to me. By the way, Lady Lelouche, regarding the dance party 3 days from now, is it true that you refused His Highness Sazenjil's invitation? More importantly, I was paying close attention to the donuts on the plate. What is this circular food? Why is the center empty? Moreover, it is covered with a lot of powdered sugar. If it's like this, isn't it obvious that it'd be amazing? Why haven't I heard about this? Is this a treat of the common people? Well, while I was truly interested in it, it'd be difficult for me if I ate too many. Naturally, maintaining one's body was also important for a lady. Considering the amount of powdered sugar, the area around my mouth would inevitably turn white. Oh, may I eat such a sinful thing? God, forgive me, or, even better, I shall let you enjoy them as well, because God's my best friend. Alright, let's include some for tonight's tea time. No matter how much I ate in my dreams, I wouldn't gain any weight. Baron Alban had bought them. He was currently away, though. Then, when I go to bid him farewell, I shall inquire to the location of the shop as well. Ah, Lady Lelouche. There were no forks or knives. If such was the case, then I shall eat it by hand. Although, Lumiere seemed to be eating it by sandwiching it between a paper napkin. I did the same and took a bite. Whoa, what was that sweet burst that exploded in my mouth? Combined with the sweetness of the oil that spread every time I chewed, it tasted utterly sinful. I was a sinner. The taste itself wasn't complicated, it was of oil and sugar. Ah, how blissful. I wouldn't mind if I died anymore. At any rate, I'd die in 3 days. I should have found that snack earlier. I should have listened to God's advice about eating more delicious food. Lady Lelouche. Lumiere, haven't I taught you that you mustn't repeat your lines? As I admonished her, my expression turned stern. However, Lumiere only smiled at me. Do you like the donuts? Yes, let me thank the Baron later. I think my father will be happy to hear that. So, may I ask you to listen to what I have to say? Of course, what is it? Why won't you participate with His Highness Sazenjil? Lumiere emphasized her question by dividing each part. Oh, so that's what this is about. I washed my mouth with unsweetened tea before talking. By the way, are you aware that Baron Aljerk and my cousin, whom I've introduced to each other, will meet you next time? Lady Lelouche. How annoying, this isn't good. Rather than the previous topic, shouldn't this be more interesting? Perhaps, we'll become relatives. Although, by that time, I wouldn't be there anymore. But if the marriage went well, the Elkage family could become Lumiere's backing. Lumiere was in a daze. It couldn't be helped. I should briefly remind her. Only betrothed and lovers partake together in such an activity. Not only the upcoming dance party, but also the other parties. Unless there were unforeseeable circumstances, the standard practice for most ladies was to be escorted by their beloved when entering the venue. Moreover, in the case of a dance party, the first dance was done with their partner. I was the escort for Lumiere at the dinner party of Count Remel. In other words, practice was over. You must attend with His Highness Sazangil, Lumiere. I've also informed him of this. But that's just strange. Why should I? Because I already request for our engagement's annulment. Strictly speaking, I hadn't received the king's permission. The engagement hadn't been annulled. But I'd die in 3 days' time. I didn't have to go through those unnecessary procedures. There was no need to upset a lot of people, including our parents. If I were gone, the engagement would naturally cease to exist. The reason I request His Highness to annul our engagement, that was due to my selfishness. Lumiere wouldn't acknowledge it. But that was just a momentary lapse in judgment because of your cold. You were happily throwing mud with His Highness. But that's that. Didn't His Highness give you a dress for the dance party? A dress? Ah. Lumiere, who was shocked, hurriedly stuffed her donut into her mouth. She swallowed it as it was and drank some tea. However, I didn't have time to pinch her because she immediately hit the table. The area around her mouth was still covered in powder, too. Lelouche, you misunderstand. What is there to misunderstand? When a man gifts a dress to a woman, there's only a single meaning. Hence I said, you misunderstood. I haven't received a dress, even if she said that. I went with Zerfield to sneak a peek at the pink dress that'd surely match her coral hair well. Still, her gaze was serious. I put my half-eaten donut back down on the plate and raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? That evening. Hey, God. Today, for the first time, I did a koibana, love talk. First and foremost, is there a need to report that? Oh, my. I haven't said anything and is already complaining. Ah, that was right. Since he was a god, he probably wasn't interested in koibana. It couldn't be helped. Alright, let's move on to the next topic. Then, have you ever had a donut? They are very delicious. No, what I'm saying is, didn't something more pressing occur today? Shouldn't you prioritize that? He asked in a tone as if he was coddling a crying toddler. Hence why I was upset. How annoying. Didn't God advise me to enjoy every day? I managed to put it into practice, too. What are you so unhappy about? The god, who brewed tea while complaining to me, spoke in a coaxing tone. No, of course I'm happy that you seem to be having fun. Well, I'm glad to hear that. For the time being, I don't think that was a koibana. Foo-foo. Did we just disagree about something? How cute. Of course, I continued. Why? I spoke about a man I like, isn't that what a koibana is? But the man you like, isn't he a historical figure? So what? Can't I fall in love with someone who's no longer of this world? I took a sip of the tea he had brewed and tilted my head. God casted his gaze downward. That's not what I'm saying. What if the person called Nameless didn't actually exist? For him to survive tens of thousands of fire arrows? It's just preposterous. Do you think so? Perhaps it'd be better if I didn't ask such a question. As a god, he mayhap had a duty of confidentiality. Therefore, he might not be able to give me a clear answer. Still, that didn't mean I shouldn't ask, right? Nameless, does he actually exist? Since you're a god, you should know the answer, right? Come on, God, aren't we buddies? For you to keep a secret from me, how saddening. Can you please not? The story of a hero who braved countless fire arrows just to protect his beloved witch, is it just a bundle of lies? It's the truth. Hey, God. Is it all right for you to answer? I wanted to laugh, but at the same time, I couldn't. God's expression was sad. He existed. There existed a man whom is now referred to as Nameless. The story about the fire arrows is also true. But to call him a hero, that's just ridiculous. That man abandoned everything for the sake of that woman, yet in the end, he still failed to protect her. He's the greatest idiot among idiots in history. Emanating from his every word was regret and repentance. Did the witch perish? Yes. She shielded Nameless. Isn't it ironic? He wanted to protect the woman, but he alone survived under the protection of said woman. Such a repulsive man, he was. He was cool, I think. However, I immediately denied his words. As for the basis, there was no such thing. It was just my feeling. For some reason, I was sure that was the case. I'm sure she thought so, too. She loved him until the end. Therefore, I think she just couldn't help but shield him. When I said that, the god smiled with a gentler face than usual. Thank you. Hearing you say that, somehow, I feel like that was the case. Oh, my. Why is the god thanking me? Aren't you and Nameless supposed to be two different people? That's right. That was right. That was all I needed to know. More than that was unnecessary. I should draw a line. But looking at how the god was guffawing, why did he look so happy? There were even wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. He was so beautiful and cute, I felt bashful. Therefore, even if I said something awful, I wouldn't be punished, right? By the way, God. What is it? I'm sorry to say this, but have you ever been told that you don't look like a god? Oh, he stiffened. I didn't care. I was looking forward to the donuts. Wow, it's amazing. The sweetness of the exuding oil was the exact taste of sin. It was the most addictive flavor. My, donuts are great even in the dream world. When I was enjoying the donut, God, who sat in front of me, suddenly stretched out his hand. Then, his fingertips gently traced my lips. Afterwards, while licking said fingertips, he said, "You're right, it's delicious." W. What are you doing? H. How uncouth. I don't want to be told that by someone as rude as you. What, are you angry or something? Upon hearing that, God only beamed. No, you're just so accurate, I can't say anything in return. I fell in love with his face all over again. In the end, I could only pretend to be innocent while eating donuts. 2 days remaining. Lelouche, will you grant me the honor of escorting you? My school day wouldn't be complete without hearing His Highness crying out to me at least once. At the same time, that was also going to be the last. After all, I had decided to spend tomorrow relaxing at home. Without giving any particular reason, I said, I'd like to spend time with my family tomorrow. Can't I? Perhaps because I had asked sweetly, my parents agreed almost instantly. They were too lenient on their daughter. My father even decided to rearrange the schedule for dinner. The future of the Elkich family is in good hands. I could only trust them on that point. Therefore, that day would be my last day at school. Although, to be precise, that'd be the day after tomorrow, when the dance party was to be held. However, on the evening of said party, I'd be wearing a dress. Thus, it'd be my last day wearing a uniform. Apparently, that was to be my last time experiencing such a lively morning, as well. For the last time, I thought of giving His Highness a thoughtful reply. I stared at His Highness Sazengil. Dazzling blonde hair and gallant lapis lazuli eyes. His beauty alone was almost like a work of art if we were to discount the fact that he seemed utterly desperate. His nose was swollen. His eyebrows were furrowed. His eyes were also glazed over. As such, I couldn't help but laugh at his beautiful, hopeless appearance. Lelouche. Pardon me, Your Highness Sazengil. Good morning. Why, yes, good morning. It was another beautiful day. Despite the season, the temperature was mild without a single breeze blowing. That's right, does he still have it? Your Highness, do you still have that stuffed animal? What? You mean this? With a somewhat happy look on his face, His Highness Sazengil took out the tattered stuffed animal. I honestly thought that as a young man of age, he shouldn't be displaying that so proudly. How hopeless. I have a once-in-a-lifetime favor to ask of you. What is it? I'll do whatever you want. Seeing how eager he was, I felt a little uneasy. Can't you be a little bit more cautious? Well, since he said that he'd do whatever, I could ask him to return the stuffed animal. After all, it was supposed to have been thrown away. Would you like to skip school together with me? What? Then, His Highness Sazengil continued. What's gotten into you, Lelouche? If my mother were to learn of this, wouldn't you be in a lot of trouble? When that happens, please be my shield. If it's only that much, it's no problem. Fufu, Your Highness, your eyes are swimming, though. Soon, we were speaking inside a carriage as we headed for the city. As I alighted from the carriage, I stretched out. Oh, I love the mixture of guilt and sense of freedom of strolling in the city so early on a weekday morning. Hey, Lelouche, should we wear a disguise? Oh, that's a great idea. Well, Your Highness, you may disguise yourself. It'd be a problem if the dignified crown prince was caught skipping school and playing around in the city. As such, disguising himself was probably for the best. However, when I was about to enter a nearby clothing store, His Highness pulled my hand. No, let's refrain from doing so. It's a uniform date. Ha! Thus, we walked around the city as we were. As I had discovered a trendy donut shop, we ate there together. As expected, the area around His Highness' mouth became pure white. Then, I spotted a strange mask at an antique shop, and told His Highness to wear it. Later, he bought it. There was a shooting game in the amusement park, so I let His Highness try it and he almost hit the clerk. We both flat out apologized afterwards. Of course, the people and the clerk who saw us were astonished. After all, not only were we in uniform, it was the Crown Prince and his fiancée. Everyone's initial reaction was, what on earth happened? But every time, His Highness would say, we're having a uniform date, so I'd like to ask you to keep this a secret. Please don't use the word date so casually. I was careless in inviting someone as serious as him. If possible, I wanted to refrain from giving everyone the impression that we were on good terms. Otherwise, when I died, it'd be a full-blown tragedy. Instead, it'd be better for everyone to hear that the villainess who was on bad terms with the Crown Prince had finally died. Therefore, I put the nail in the coffin. I'm going to ask you to not only annul our engagement, but also to escort Lumiere to the party the day after tomorrow. But why? His Highness was so utterly shocked that he dropped his cutlery. Meanwhile, I was twirling the pasta around my fork as I looked at him. Lumiere has no one else besides Your Highness. Without you, won't she be lonely? It'd be embarrassing for a lady to enter alone. His Highness narrowed his eyes. Then, with whom are you going? That'll be a secret until the day of. Is it Saffield? Of course not. Then, is it someone else that you like? That person wouldn't be able to attend, though. He couldn't participate in the party. In the first place, would I survive until the start of the party? If possible, I'd like to see Nameless Sunset one more time. The crimson flowers, along with the setting sun, were so beautifully drawn, they left me lost for words. As I brought the pasta to my mouth, His Highness put his elbow at the table. Is that supposed to be a riddle? I don't understand at all. Well, it's complicated, so do your best. My fiancé is going to die the day after tomorrow, yet refuses to attend the party with me to make a final memory. I'd be in trouble if he got that right. I'd also be troubled if he were to be saddened by the tragedy. That's right, let's return to the academy after we finished eating. There's someone I'd like to meet. Is it Lumiere? Well, half correct. I have to make a final confirmation of her party etiquette. If so, then is it Saffield? Being honest with you, I'd like to refrain from meeting him. He lied to me about the dress Lumiere had supposedly received from His Highness Sazengil. I knew he had his reasons, such as because he had a crush on me, or because he was testing His Highness Sazengil. Regardless, I couldn't just keep silent and move on. Still, I regretted that I couldn't continue to train until the end. As he clenched his fist in frustration, His Highness sipped his water and said, "Did he do something to you as well?" "As well? No, never mind. Don't worry about that. I'd rather not meddle in the siblings' affairs." Then, I opted to think about the alternatives. "Well, don't worry, I'll deal with the rest. Is there anything I can do for you?" "By all means, escort Lumiere. Like I said, we're in this together." I was sure that he'd be able to handle it. I finished my lunch and got up from my seat. Everything will be all right. I'm not that fragile of a woman. Am I such an unreliable man? No, it's not like that. I just don't know how to depend on you. But one thing is for certain, Your Highness. I put my napkin on the chair before smiling at His Highness and telling him how I truly felt. I really appreciated our date today. Because of you, I had so much fun. Then, I'll ask you to do so on that day. After school that day. I said my goodbyes in the hallway of the choice class and turned on my heels. Well, I guess that's all I can do. The rest is up to him. Now, I had to go meet Lumiere. Since it was my last day, I happily bought some snacks. But as I didn't want her to get too plump after eating donuts every day, I bought cookies with lots of dried fruit in them. I hope she'll be happy with them. As I was walking down the corridor, there was a sudden tug on my arm. I was pulled behind a secluded staircase. In the dim light, a man's long, silver hair shone from the backlight. As both of his elbows trapped me against the wall, I could see his lapis lazuli eyes from up close. To not be able to defend against this kind of situation, you still have a long way to go, Lelouche. Your Highness Suffield, please don't corner me while saying something like that. We were at a distance where our noses were likely to touch. Thankfully, the other party was His Highness Suffield. Otherwise, it'd have been impossible for me. Popular with the girls, His Highness Suffield was handsome like usual. As such, it was bad for my heart. When I averted my gaze, His Highness Suffield leaned to my ear and chuckled. What a relief, you still see me as a man. I always think of you as a gentleman. Why did you skip today's training? Oh, did you wait for me? My apologies. As usual, it was common practice for young ladies to pretend like nothing happened. However, my hand trembled as I held the paper bag. It was obvious that I was behaving strangely. Hey, where did you go with my brother today? We took a stroll around the city for a change of pace. Even though you're no longer engaged with him? He had a point. After he had pointed it out, I was amazed by my own shallowness. Still, I wanted to forget everything else and make memories. I knew it wouldn't make sense. No matter how much I tried to cut them off, they were still the few, closest people I had. Did you know? That includes you too, Your Highness Suffield. In truth, I'd have liked to invite His Highness Suffield out, as well. If that's the case, then why didn't you invite me? I would have gladly skipped school if Lelouche had asked. But you told me a great lie, didn't you? I'm angry with you. His Highness Suffield chuckled. When I thought that he had finished laughing, he slammed his fist against the wall right above my head. Involuntarily, my shoulders flinched, and I dropped the paper bag. He mercilessly screamed at me. Yes, that's right. From the very start, I'm a big liar. Is that why you discarded me? Don't raise your voice, please. Even if it's after school, it's not like there are no people. Are you worried about the implications? What, is it because it might affect my brother's reputation? That's not what I'm saying. But he hasn't officially accepted the annulment of our engagement. It was too late to salvage my own reputation. But if things went on like that, His Highness Suffield would suffer the consequences, as well. By trying to assault his brother's fiancé, his future engagement could be affected. Besides, even if we were childhood friends, there was no excuse for such a close distance. However, I didn't think he'd understand that at the moment. His Highness Suffield scoffed at my words. But in the end, you still prefer him, don't you? The day after tomorrow, you'll ask my brother to escort you. No. I've just turned him down again. Ha! What do you mean by that? Don't lie to me by saying that you have someone else you like. That's not exactly a lie. Then, who is it? I looked up at His Highness Suffield. Both his fervor and frustration left me no choice. Nameless. Nameless? Yes. Nameless Sunset. Surely, you're familiar with him? Don't mess with me. Nevertheless, I got yelled at once again. I wasn't joking. What should I do? I was truly at a loss. How was I supposed to convince him? Suddenly, something hot dripped on my cheek. I was confused. We were inside the academy. It shouldn't have been rain. When I finally lifted my face, I saw that His Highness Suffield's azure blue eyes were overflowing with tears. Don't play around with me, Lelouche. Don't you know how I feel about you? Due to his tears, I involuntarily told him. I am destined to die the day after tomorrow. What? So, I have no intention of reciprocating anyone's feelings. I shall dedicate my whole being to God. As if taken aback, His Highness Saffield blinked profusely. That's right. For saying something like that, I fully expected that no one would believe me. It was a matter of course. But why? It made me want to cry, too. However, that'd be selfish of me. I slipped out of his loose hold and picked up the paper bag. Then, I shall excuse myself. Lumiere is waiting for me. When I tried to leave, I could hear him mutter, "Do you love my brother that much?" It's not like that. It's different. But of course, my voice didn't reach him. I quickly headed to the usual empty classroom and closed the door behind me. Upon seeing me, Lumiere, who had opened her textbook, sat up in worry. "Lady Lelouche." After taking a breath, I smiled at her. "I'm sorry for being late. I bought some sweets. Would you like to eat them together?" That day, I went to the storage room belonging to the Swordsmanship Club before returning home. As one could imagine, keep a sword with me during class or in my bag was dangerous. Therefore, I stored it properly when I wasn't using it. The reason I dropped by the warehouse was to take it home with me. Now, where is it? It was a small sword that I especially chose. No one from the Swordsmanship Club would have ever used it, but I couldn't find the sword anywhere. Hey, about the thing you said earlier. What? Did I say something strange? During night time. Of course, I also bought God some cookies. However, many of them had crumbled. Yet, God still ate them without saying anything. Then, while eating, God bashfully remarked, "That, you're dedicating yourself to God. Foo-foo, isn't that a common answer?" That's right. It's something that priests often say. Ha ha ha. Still, those were my honest feelings. Foo-foo, God blushed. Usually, I'd have been astonished by the gap in character, but I had become accustomed to it. At the same time, I was also elated. More importantly, you seem to have had fun today. You also have a talent for shooting. I spoke to God about the things we did in the city and what we ate. God listened to my innocent talk and gave appropriate responses. I was most grateful for that. Because until the end of my life, I wanted to keep smiling. One day remaining. As planned, I spent my time with my family that day. I helped my father tend the field. Unlike usual, I took my sweet time. After that, we all ate the breakfast that my mother served. While discussing what to do that day, we were in great agreement that we should check up on Rufus, who was studying under a master of painting. For them to agree so easily, I thought that it was odd. But it turned out that my parents were visiting my brother once a week. They sure were overprotective. Moreover, the master always caught them. He even complained, at least, put some more effort into not getting caught. That day, the three of us got found out, too. But after that, the master gave Rufus some time to rest. Rufus, who I hadn't seen in a long time, had tanned and looked quite manly. Apparently, he'd run some errands for the master along with the other apprentices. Despite having a hard time, Rufus seemed to be enjoying himself. Boys sure grow up fast. Afterwards, I went home and made dinner with my mother. I tried my hands at making a stew, but white sauce was actually difficult to make. Thus, I accidentally burned it and the sauce turned black. Even so, my father said, "How delicious." When I burst into tears, my parents were shocked. Shrugging it off and shifting the topic proved difficult. Then, I took a bath and the three of us played cards for the first time in a while. My mother was unexpectedly excelled at cards. In contrast, my father wasn't so good. Hence, the winning side became obvious. My mother's luck is truly amazing. Hopefully, she'd bestow some of it to my father's scalp. Then, my apologies, I ended up pulling an all-nighter. In the pure white world, I apologized to God. He wasn't angry and instead smiled quietly. "Did you have fun?" Yes, it was a truly fun day. That day was the last day I'd be spending with my family. Said day turned out to be very peaceful and enjoyable. Soon, tomorrow would arrive. Then, on the morrow, God asked as he brewed tea as usual, What would you like to do tonight? Do you want to spend your time chatting like usual? Or, no, actually, there are many things I'd like to ask you. Upon steeling my resolve, I gazed into God's sullen eyes. He offered me a cup of tea and said, "Go ahead." After quenching my thirst with the steaming black tea, I raised some questions. First of all, are you truly a god? Isn't it a bit late to be asking that? Unfortunately, yes. It's my obligation to look over the activities of the living in this world and govern the cycle of life and death. Although, despite saying something so grandiose, other than a person's life expectancy, I don't know anything else. I see. God isn't omnipotent. Well, even if a god is supposed to be omnipotent, this particular god just didn't seem like he would be. Oh no, what do I do? I'm sure he'll get offended if he reads my mind right now. Then, is it all right for a god to lend his aid to an individual such as me? In all honesty, it isn't. Right now, I'm still safe, but I'm sure that I'll suffer consequences later. Your work environment sure is harsh. It's merely a different dimension. Once you get inside, everywhere is the same. I have a superior and subordinates. Besides, I'm relatively low-ranked. There are many substitutes for me. As I thought, the world of gods is difficult to comprehend. I felt like if I understood too much, my dreams would shatter into pieces. As such, I decided to not dig too deep. Alright, let's return to the main topic. Why? Why are you going to such lengths for me? I had always wondered about that. While calling himself arrogant, why did God insist on helping me? I refrained from asking that question because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to see him anymore. Thus, I decided to keep quiet. After all, I was stated to die in 100 days. There's no way I can spend those days by myself. It's just like I said at the beginning. It's due to my arrogance. I only want you to be happy. Even if there is only a little bit of time left, I wanted you to spend those days to the fullest. That's all. Yes, but you ended up placing a lot of pressure on me, like, why don't you go out more? Why don't you eat something delicious? Don't you want to fall in love? Well, that's because, up until now, you haven't enjoyed yourself at all. When it comes to girls of your age, don't you like talking about who you like and such, along with eating delicious food while looking at pretty things? Like I said, you're merely imposing your ideals to me. If I were to die in 100 days, I'd refrain from doing anything that'd cause my family to be unhappy. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. When I stated the truth, God shrugged and smiled wryly. I agree. This time, essentially, I wanted to let you live for yourself. But you are just that kind of girl, aren't you? What do you mean, this time? Never mind. I'm sorry. It's irrelevant to our current topic. What's with that? Even though I was truly curious, God only shrugged me off. In the end, did I become a hindrance? Oh my, did you realize that just now? Hey, God. I didn't want him to make such a face. I wanted to see him smile. I wanted him to smile happily beside me. God taught me the future. Because of you, I was able to do something for my family. Besides, I had a lot of fun these past 100 days, and it was all because of you. I couldn't wish for anything more than that. That's right, I was truly looking forward to seeing you every night. I can't thank you enough. When I straightforwardly said that, God chuckled and started laughing. Look at you, saying such a thing so happily. Are you trying to seduce me? Well, of course. Upon affirming his question, God turned bright red. Really, he's more selfish, arrogant, and human-like than anyone I know. Hey, God. Do you remember the promise we made? Of course. What is it you want? Wealth? Fame? A romantic lover? An irreplaceable friend? Or, would you like to become a god as well? If so, I can recommend you. I'm keeping it a secret until tomorrow. I winked at him. I'll keep it a secret until tomorrow. I winked at him. Ah, but I have an urgent request. Do you have some time tomorrow? If possible, when I die, I want you to be the one to pick me up. I'll be here the entire time. If it's only that, I can grant your request. Consider it special treatment. How kind of you. If I don't do that much, I don't know what kind of complaints I'll get later. You understand very well. God smiled bitterly once again. From there, I asked a variety of questions. If I hadn't done anything, how would I have died? I was truly excited to hear the answer to that question. However, it turned out that His Highness Sazangil would have accidentally stabbed me. Due to hearing rumors that I was going to be assassinated, I carried a dagger for self-defense. Thus, His Highness Sazangil tried to confiscate it. Because of our strained relationship, I misunderstood and desperately fought back. The rest was history. That's a splendidly outrageous way to die. Then, history distorted the facts into something like, Lelouche Elkidge was condemned. Truth is stranger than fiction, indeed. Afterwards, when I asked God about the affairs of my family, He said that quite a lot of people harbored grudges and envy towards them, especially the head of the Fable family. My father broke his engagement with a member of the Fable family to marry the beautiful princess of a foreign country. Basically, a typical example of being hated because you are well off. At last, I asked about the truth behind the assassination of His Highness Sazangil. But why are you asking me all of this now? Wouldn't it have been better to ask earlier? At first, I was running away because I was scared to hear the truth. But now, it's different. Could it be, you've figured it out? I leaned forward and pressed my finger against God's lips. As I enjoyed the cool sensation of His lips, I smiled. I'll refrain from saying anything else. After all, I have no intention of listening to your useless advice. How terrible. You should listen to what others have to say. But doing the opposite of that sounds like what a villainess would do. Well, even if so. God gently pushed my hand away, before slowly putting down His cup. I'll make sure to witness your final moments. Properly see it, okay? I stood up from my chair and elegantly bowed. Hey, God, be sure to watch. I'll show you the most beautiful last stand you'll ever see. Interlude, idle talk. The monologue of a swindler who can't keep quiet. Ah, I feel sick. Do you know what I dislike the most? I hate my brother. I hate Lelouche. And I hate myself. I feel like a piece of shit. I'm nothing but a piece of shit, be it now, and in the past. All I can do is watch my brother and Lelouche enjoy themselves. I tried so hard for so many years to drive a wedge between them, but in the end, they're still just as good friends as before. Ah, I can't do this. I can't. It's as if they're destined to be together. To hell with that. Such a world. If all I can do is continue to look at this sickening world. Oh, that's right. After I had let Lelouche go, I noticed something. Lelouche, you were unusually frightened. If it was the usual Lelouche, she wouldn't have even bat an eye from being cornered by a man. Cuckoo. In the darkest corner of the stairs, I laughed to myself. I'm truly hopeless. After all, I was happy. I was happy at the thought that she was scared of me. Because at the very least, she feels something towards me. Hey, aren't I crazy? Aren't I better off dead? I was an eternal liar. Surely, there was no need for such a man in this world. Well, doesn't that make it simple? Now, what should I do? Where should it be? If I were to do something spectacular, then let's do it at the dance party the day after tomorrow. Nearing the end, I wanted to dream a little. Let's call it my last act of selfishness. I stood up and immediately started preparing. First, I stole Lelouch's sword. At that time, she should be studying with Lumiere. As expected, I found the sword at the swordsmanship club. As the club members were practicing outside, slipping in unnoticed was easy. Next, I contacted my trusted mercenary. Back when I paid him to push Lelouch down the stairs, I told him to use a secret passageway. No matter how peaceful the world may be, not a day goes by when night doesn't come, right? As long as I paid enough money at a bar in town, I could be introduced to those guys. Hey, Lelouch, I'd like you to imagine this. Tentatively speaking, if your sword were to be found next to my body, what would happen? Wouldn't you become the main suspect to my murder? Although, considering it's you, you might be able to prove them wrong. Nevertheless, if I were to create such an uproar at the end of my life, would you curse me? Instead of my brother, will you curse me? Will you stare at me with every ounce of resentment in your eyes? And only at me? 2 days later. Today was the day I would die. I had no regrets. To not have to look at things I didn't like anymore, it was somewhat refreshing. That morning, my brother was concerned about Lelouche. What is she going to do alone at today's dance party? As I thought, he suspected nothing. Well, I won't bother you anymore, so be happy together. Do whatever you like. I decided to review today's plan. Although, it was quite simple. During the dance party, I'd be killed by an assassin I had hired. Of course, the murder weapon would be Lelouche's short sword. Just in case, I had an extremely lethal poison smeared on the blade. There was no antidote, so my death was guaranteed. After doing something so outrageous, I'd rather not have a chance of surviving. I didn't want to live in shame. By the way, I had arranged it so that the Fable family would be linked to the acquisition of the poison. I took it as an opportunity to quell down those noisy people. My only concern was Lelouche's unknown whereabouts. Until it was about time to enter, my brother and Lumiere would be waiting in a separate room. As a matter of course, I was also invited to the event. After refusing because I didn't have a partner, I was told to partake in the lobby just like the other students. All that was left was to prepare someone to scream on spot. If possible, I wanted to see what kind of expressions my brother and Lelouche would make at the end. Whether or not I'd still retain my consciousness by that time was a gamble. Just like Lelouche, I didn't have a partner. I was surprised that Lala Fable had the courage to approach me the day before. She looked truly embarrassed. I felt a little envious of her. If I had that kind of courage, my future would surely be different. I'm sorry for making fun of you in the past, saying that we were similar. I thought of getting her involved, but as a symbol of apology, I let her go. Surely, not all students have been engaged. There must be 1 or 2 remaining pitiful ladies. Pretending to give a hand to one of them, I was about to take advantage of her as I saw fit. Then, while I was wandering around the academy, which was more glamorously decorated than usual, I spotted a girl. Wearing a large pink feathered hat, the dress the girl wore also bore the same color. I recognized that dress. After all, I lied to Lelouche about that exact dress, saying that it was a gift from my brother to Lumiere. I had heard that instead of Lumiere, a girl who was in the same class as her would be renting that dress. If I wasn't mistaken, her surname was Troyes. Under Lala's command, she lied to Lelouche when she was under house arrest. After the operation failed, the girl was cut off by Lala, but my brother and Lumiere approached her. In any case, her family had just ascended to the title of Baron, and their faction hadn't yet been decided. Thus, as a form of punishment, my brother made her join his faction. As I thought, my brother is too soft. Even so, it was amazing. Unexpectedly, I was also fascinated by her. Upon seeing that flashy dress for the first time, my initial reaction was, who's foolish enough to don this? Apparently, depending on the person who wore it, the dress could become gorgeous. Probably because the girl herself had good posture. While the dress looked heavy, the girl's posture and demeanor were flawless. As everyone waited for her entrance, their eyes were trained on her. Even I couldn't hide my surprise. Apparently, the girl who was cut off by Lala was quite the talented person. There she was, standing proudly by herself in the center of the lobby in front of the auditorium. The male students who had no partners approached her, but they were all rejected without a second thought. Then, I shall go with her. If I were to disappear with a girl who stood out like that, I'd be found faster. As such, I'd have a higher chance of seeing Lelouche's expression at the end. The beautiful lady over there. If you'd like, could you give me the honor of escorting you? I pushed the men around me and kneeled before her, extending my hand. In turn, she responded, "Nice to meet you." Amazing. Even though I was used to being with women, a chill ran down my spine. Is she truly a mere baroness? What would become of the kingdom? Well, it no longer mattered to me. I lightly dropped a kiss on the back of her hand, then stood up and wrapped my arm around her waist. There's still time before the party starts. If you prefer, let's talk in a quieter place. Can you guide me? Once again, I was astonished by the girl. Even though she's of the same age as me, For a first-year student to have such dignity. The world didn't cease to surprise me. It's a beautiful starry night today. As I remarked politely, I led her to the corner of the garden. Indeed, it was the place where I used to train with Lelouche during lunch break. Those were happy times, to say the least. After all, my brother wasn't there. As she gripped her sword, Lelouche would stare at me with a serious expression. During those times, I was the only person in her world. Yet, no matter how many times I wished that time would last forever, the bell that announced the end of each day would always ring. Hence why I thought that place would be a good place to meet my end. Now, the time for the operation was set for 5 minutes after the party had started. That was around the time when high-ranking aristocrats were getting ready to enter the venue. As the second prince, I'd naturally be the last to enter. I guess I could kill time with her there for about 10 more minutes. When I was laying a handkerchief on the bench for her to sit on. I appreciate your concern, so could you turn to me? What? Right after I turned around, a sharp pain ran through my cheek. It Hewitts. Though the sound itself was dull, it was truly painful. Then, the lady in front of me lifted her skirt with both hands and mercilessly drove her heel into my stomach. As I dropped down on the bench, the girl lifted my chin with her fan. With starlight as her backdrop, the girl raised both corners of her mouth. The girl was more divine than anyone else. Did I catch you off guard, Your Highness Saffield? She tossed her feather cap away with one hand. Even if slightly ruffled, her hair, which held the same color as the night, fluttered gracefully in the wind. Lelouch Elkidge smiled gracefully at me. Chapter 6, Let's perform the last dance. I discarded my feathered hat and combed my hair. Then, I cleared my throat. I was tired of forcing myself to speak in a low voice. Although, apparently, that was how an ideal noble lady would speak. Due to my old, mischievous habits, I was able to change my voice to an extent. However, I should have practiced more. Looking up at me, His Highness Saffield muttered. Lelouch. Then, let me repeat myself, good day to you, Your Highness Saffield. The corners of my mouth slowly lifted up. Once again, I held the hems of my pink dress and curtsied. His Highness Saffield sat on the bench while holding his cheek. His eyes were wide open. Ah, what a nice expression. I was glad that he was surprised. The starlight and the lanterns were our only sources of light. In the darkness, at the edge of the garden, not a soul could be seen. All that could be heard was the gentle music and the voices of people drifting over from the hall. With a chuckle, I looked down at His Highness Saffield. How's my kick? Unfortunately, when push came to shove, I still hesitated in aiming for your crotch. I'm sorry that I couldn't adhere to my teacher's teachings. What's that supposed to mean? Is it a punishment for a liar like me? In a nutshell, it is. Oh, right. There's something else I'd like to ask. My leg aside, the hand that hit him stung. But, compared to the pain in my chest, it was nothing. If possible, I didn't want to ask about this, either. 2 days ago, the sword that I left at the academy went missing. Do you know where it went? As soon as I asked, His Highness Saffield burst into laughter. He patted his jacket and trousers, which were much flashier than his school uniform, to show that he wasn't hiding anything. Who knows? Maybe it was stolen because they deemed it too good for an amateur. Oh, my, and here I thought that Your Highness, who had skipped out on our training, would know. But, what a shame. Now, it's my turn. I'm more curious about your dress. What happened to the dress that you went to pick with me and paid for yourself? Your current dress, shouldn't Lumiere be wearing that? As usual, your acting is solid. Did you think I was Lumiere? Then, were you trying to ask her out? For 2 princes to vie for a baroness. It sounds like something out of a maiden's novel. As he sat down on the bench once again, His Highness Saffield shrugged. I got it, already. Lelouch is mad. Sorry about that. He apologized while laughing. Amazed, I couldn't help but sigh. You're no longer planning to kill your brother, right? What? This, again? Lelouch seems to love that setting too much. Do you want me to be the culprit to his murder that much? While that isn't necessarily the case, how do I say this? That's right, I saw it in a dream. A dream in which you stabbed His Highness Sazangil to death. It was terribly awful. In truth, I heard that from God last night in a dream. Therefore, I didn't lie. When I tearfully said that, His Highness Saffield laughed. Poor you. Then, as if nothing happened, he invited me to sit on the handkerchief he had laid out on the bench. When he saw I wasn't moving, he proceeded to stand beside me. Right. The other day, Lumiere praised me for being dreamy. Is that truly a compliment? Well, what else do you think it could mean? While making jokes as usual, I began to think. According to God, His Highness Saffield would get angry at His Highness Sazangil for stabbing me, and killed him. If I recalled correctly, God mentioned at the beginning that someone was aiming for His Highness Sazangil's life. Or something like that. It was already 100 days ago, so the memory was vague. After confirming it last night, I wondered about the cause of my death and the aftermath. As a result, I couldn't help but think that His Highness Saffield was plotting something. Precisely at that moment, the sound of the bell echoed amidst the dark night. The party was about to start. I couldn't stay with His Highness Saffield there forever. Then, should I ask frankly now? Hey, Your Highness Saffield, do you have anything you'd like to say to me? Chem, I love you. Oh, no. Not that kind of joke, please. When I puffed my cheeks, His Highness Saffield gleefully wiped away his tears. Even though those were my honest feelings. Lelouche is really the worst. By the way, other than this dress and bullying Lumiere, have you done anything else? Well, I did. 3 years ago, do you remember when I told you that unless you made your social debut, my older brother would only see you as his little sister? Of course. From then on, I began to put tremendous effort in becoming the future princess. Then, His Highness Saffield added, I lied. My brother's concern towards you was genuine. Aside from that, is there anything else? After blinking several times, His Highness Saffield nonchalantly explained everything. Also, I probably said a lot to my brother. I told him that in order to alleviate your stress, it'd be better if he didn't approach you in school. That way, you could forget about the princess education, even if a little. I also told him that if you were avoiding him, then he should show some manly dignity once in a while and catch you by surprise. Well, no wonder he spawned everywhere to the point that I was overwhelmed and exhausted. I think those are honestly good pieces of advice, coming from you. Haha, that's right. As expected of Lelouche, you understand, don't you? Did you have fun? When I asked him, he gently narrowed his eyes. Knowing that he wouldn't respond right away, why did I ask such a thing? Not like the answer would benefit me either way. Nevertheless, I was neither resentful nor angry. Thus, I proceeded to the next question. Did you enjoy seeing us being influenced by such behavior? That's right. It was a lot of fun. Hey, Your Highness Saffield. If what you said is true, then why is your face filled with sorrow? The music from the venue grew louder and louder. I could vaguely hear them announcing the names of the attendees. The party was progressing steadily. Among it, the voice that answered my question wavered slightly. Hey, Lelouche, were you shocked? Look at you, trying to sound all sad. Did he think that I couldn't see through it? How long had we been together? Were you disappointed? Did you despair, perhaps? Or maybe, the two of you already overcame those obstacles and made up. Then, isn't it all swell that ends well? Well, if you were to ask me, I just think that what you did is unreasonable. What's that? Is that it? Are you satisfied with just a slap? You can unleash your frustration on me. After all, an opportunity like this may never come again. In the first place, it has nothing to do with love. When I sighed, His Highness tilted his head. What do you mean? The one who saw the other as nothing more than a sibling is probably me. A long time ago, I was told that my fiancé only saw me as his sister. Admittedly, I was depressed at that time. After all, to be able to support the Crown Prince, I'd have to at least be his equal. As such, I resolved myself to debut in society. In fact, at that time, I was probably desperate. However, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because I did get what I wanted in the end. Even so, now that I thought about it, His Highness Sazangil was akin to an older brother to me, always worrying about me relentlessly. But, Your Highness Saffield, does that mean that he isn't important to you? Until a while ago, I didn't understand what love meant, but that didn't mean I didn't have someone important to me. If my heart doesn't flutter when I see him, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't cherish him. Even if I didn't feel that way towards him, he's still important to me. Father, mother, Rufus, the king, the queen, His Highness Sazangil, His Highness Saffield, and everyone else, they were irreplaceable people for me. I was angry towards His Highness Sazangil, and as a result, I gave him the cold shoulder. Due to the misunderstanding, I was resentful from the bottom of my heart. Even so, he's still important to me, and so are you, Your Highness Saffield. Therefore, no matter how mean he was, no matter how deplorable he was, I still couldn't hate him. To disguise myself and surprise him, before slapping and then kicking him as long as I could see his goofy face, then that was enough. Although I kept people at bay, once I had grown attached to them, cutting them off was an impossibility for me. How haughty of me. That's why, to you, who's been watching over me for so long. Ah, the timing's just right. Ha! His Highness Saffield, who had been quietly listening to me for a long time, suddenly stood up. It looks like I won't have to listen to you anymore. Then, as he turned around, he let out such a refreshing remark. His long, silver hair appeared reddish due to the light of the lantern. Thank you, Lelouche. But the guilt is simply unbearable, so goodbye. With a sadder smile than usual, he spoke in the gentlest tone possible. Then, at the end, my best friend said the worst thing ever. Please, for the rest of your life, remember me for the bad guy I am. There was a subtly sound of rustling grass. Yet even when I looked around, I couldn't see anyone amidst the quiet ground. Nevertheless, a terrible premonition loomed over me. It was similar to the feeling I had when I confronted His Highness Saffield about the sword. I see. My time has come. I jumped to my feet and seized His Highness Saffield's arm. He also taught me that move. Then, just like that, I was able to sweep him off his feet. As expected of myself. It was even better than during the practice. As a result, the sharp tip of a sword plunged into my abdomen. It hurts. It burns. My entire body felt as if it was burning and freezing at the same time. Due to the incomprehensible sensation, I fell to my knees. Foo-foo. I couldn't help but laugh. As expected, dying was rough. As he looked down at me, His Highness Saffield was at a loss for words. But in the next moment, he shouted, "Go away. This is it, the end of the task." Towards His Highness Saffield, who approached me on all fours, I smiled. Now, you'll just get your pants dirty. Lelouche." At his behest, the assassin left immediately. What fell on the spot was a familiar, small sword. I see. That's how it was. Did you want to frame me, for your death? Lelouche, stay strong. Someone, please come here. Answer me, Saffield Louis Lapicenta. My scolding, which resembled an angry roar, finally caught his attention. I grabbed him by the collar. Are you a moron? Did you try to kill yourself? To throw your own life away? What kind of foolishness? Surely, God won't know. I personally won't forgive you for this. Lelouche, I don't care if you wanted to frame me as the culprit, or about the lies that you've spoken to me. Rather than that, if you indeed watched us the whole time, then why didn't you realize it? Why didn't you realize that you're important to His Highness Sazangil? Did he hear me? He shook his head. Idiot. No matter how much he denied reality, he wouldn't be able to change it because it had already happened. I didn't teach you, so that you can pull this sort of thing. Well, wasn't I unexpectedly on schedule? Who's protecting who, now? Well, it didn't matter. Although His Highness Saffield was a much bigger idiot than I expected, everything was still within the scope of my prediction. Hey, Your Highness Saffield, you're a precious childhood friend to me. Because you've always watched over me, I can be myself. As a result, I did a lot of foolish things in the past. I knew it. Back when I fell from the staircase, His Highness Sazangil wasn't the only one present. His Highness Saffield probably saw the entire thing. I also knew that when it got truly dangerous, he'd stop me. After all, back when he taught me swordsmanship, he'd get terribly angry when I pulled a reckless stunt. It was the same when I played in the mud the other day. Somehow, before the teachers could inform my parents about it, His Highness Zephield managed to convince them that making me write a self-reflection letter would suffice as a form of punishment. I've always been spoiled by you, haven't I? I was happy. Hence, I slowly stood up. Otherwise, I'd end up being spoiled by him again. Albeit my dying figure might be unsightly, but please, just see me off. I have to go. Where are you going with that kind of injury? Do not follow me. I ended up screaming for no reason. Due to that, my vision flickered, while my body wavered. As a matter of course, every time I move, my pierced abdomen hurt. Unfortunately, I won't be dying beside you. Therefore, please wait here for someone other than me to scold you. This isn't the end for me. I had to go. After all, to him, and to her, I still had something to say. Leaning my weight against the wall, I moved forward step by step while covering my oozing abdomen. Why does the venue feel so far away? Truly, I'm no match for Lelouche. His Highness Zephield, who finally knelt down, didn't follow me any further. The tune of the orchestra rang terribly loud. With every step I made, a red stain spread further across my pink dress. In truth, I despised that dress. Due to a lot of unnecessary ruffles, it was very heavy. The skirt was also unreasonably flowy. Not to mention, the stiletto heels didn't feel right. The heels were simply too thin. Under normal circumstances, I would have picked something that was easier to move in. After all, simple was best. Although, even if I made such an inward complaint, nothing would change. At last, I reached the corridor. I entered the academy from the emergency exit, before heading for a passageway where I would be able to easily access the venue. In the midst of that grand party, people seldom lingered around the school building. Even so, I was worried that a guard might see me. Thankfully, that didn't happen. After all, if there was a commotion in the end, I wouldn't be able to pass on peacefully. The venue was still far away. Normally, it'd only take a few minutes to reach that place. It's all because of this dress. Even though I had prepared a nice, lighter dress. Why did I wear the type of dress that I hated the most? Really, it's His Highness Sazengil's fault. Also, His Highness Zephield's. I disguised myself to make him cry, but I should have stopped, after all. This is so annoying. Feeling exhausted, I collapsed on the spot. The floor was cool and comfortable. It almost made me want to close to my eyes. Foo-foo, what a disappointing end. To think that I said those words with so much bravado to God. Someone, help me already. Give it your best. I felt like I heard such a voice. For a moment, my vision was dyed white. Before I knew it, I felt much lighter. I got up in a hurry, but as I thought, my wound hurt. Nevertheless, the useless drapes and frills were all gone. Instead, I found myself wearing a deep, red dress. A silk dress that was tight except for the hem. Of course, there were no useless decorations on the sleeves, so I could move nimbly. The shoes also had thick heels and gave a sense of stability. The hair on my shoulders and face was also smoother than usual. That goes without saying. Involuntarily, I smiled wryly. For my dress to change in an instant, there was only one being who was capable of such a feat. You're disqualified as a god, after all. To willy-nilly perform such a miracle on an individual like me. Previously, didn't he mention that he'd get an earful? What a foolish man. However, I had made it this far. It didn't matter if I was a queen candidate, or a duke's daughter. If I were to give up here, I'd be a disgrace of a woman. Thus, I put my strength in my legs and stood up again. Hey, God. Until the last minute before the dance party began, I was researching about the witch that Nameless wanted to protect. At that time, witches were feared. It went without saying that their eyes and hair were both black. Apparently, they were the characteristics of those who destroyed the world before Genesis. Thus, they were sentenced to a punishment called the witch hunt, for the crime of being born. How outrageous, right? In the present day, it was the kind of story that'd make people laugh. Common sense changed with the time. If I had lived during that period, I may have already given up on my life. But what if there was someone who was reckless enough to reach out to me? If there had been, then that person would have been godlike to me. There was no way I wouldn't fall in love with such a gentleman. I would have wanted to protect him no matter what. But of course, I have no intention of asking him about that history. Because I wasn't a witch, but Lelouch Elkage. I was the eldest daughter of a duke family, and had been appointed as the next crown princess. Nothing more, nothing less. As a matter of course, I couldn't cast any spells, or perform miracles. Which was why I wanted to show His Highness Sazengel, His Highness Saffield, and the other people who were heading towards their own future. I was mediocre, without any particular talents, or a good personality to boast. But I do know that I lived here and now. Even so, when I finally arrived at the lobby, most of the people were gone. However, His Highness the Crown Prince, Sazengel Lucchino Lapicenta, and the Baron's daughter, Baroness Lumiere Alban were there. His Highness Sazengel was instructing the guards. "We're fine. Go to the emergency patient immediately." Understood. By that order, even his own escorts vanished. A commotion erupted from inside the hall. "Your Highness, I'm truly sorry. I'll open the door immediately. What kind of situation is this? Suddenly, the door won't open, and to have everyone leave to aid an emergency patient. Even if it's a miracle, it's overkill. I'll have to complain to God later." I gave myself a pep talk. This is the final stage. I mustn't show them a clumsy appearance. At that time, I stood firmly. Lady Lelouch, Lumiere, who noticed me, became relieved. "What, are you still trying to escape the responsibility having been escorted by His Highness?" Even though the navy blue and gold dress looked stunning on her, she still had a long way to go. When I curtsied without saying anything, His Highness Sazengel let out a small sigh. "You seem to be all right, Lelouch." "What is a relief? A lot of problems just came out of nowhere. There are only some minor issues, but it doesn't look like the party will be able to start for a while." "Is it on the left?" "Then, Your Highness." "Lady Lelouch, pardon my rudeness. But is something wrong with you?" "I'm the same as usual." Despite my smile, Lumiere only narrowed her eyes. "Liar. Lady Lelouch can't even bend her legs to give a proper curtsy like usual. The reason you didn't show up until now is probably because you were resting somewhere." Lumiere rushed to me and put her hand on my back. I couldn't help but yelp, causing her to worry even more. "Lady Lelouch." She observed me, before reaching out to my stomach. "Excuse me." As a result, her hand became sticky red with blood. "Lady Lelouch." "Lumiere, what's wrong?" Hearing that scream, even His Highness rushed towards us. At that moment, he saw everything. I left a red trail behind me. I was hoping that they wouldn't notice. "I didn't expect you to realize it, Lumiere." I immediately call a doctor. When I saw that Lumiere was about to flee, I caught a hold of her arm. At that moment, I noticed the bracelet with a string of white shells on her delicate wrist. I was so happy I held out my hand. I was also wearing the same bracelet. "I'm so happy. You wore it." "Lady Lelouch, now isn't the time. Please stop. I know best that I'll die soon." I'm glad I was finally able to see both of. In the middle of my speech, I finally lost the strength to even stand. As I was about to collapse, His Highness Sazengel caught me. He looked about to cry. For the future king to cry in front of his people, wouldn't that be outrageous? After staring at each other for a while, His Highness gritted his teeth. Perhaps my thoughts were conveyed. Then, he slowly spoke to me in a trembling voice. "Is there anyone you'd like me to call, such as your parents?" "No. The two of you are enough. Yesterday, my father and mother spoiled me a lot." "Thank you, Your Highness Sazengel." In my blurred vision, I looked up at Lumiere. "Lumiere, you've endured my strict guidance for the past 100 days. Lady Lelouch." "Foo-foo. Why are you crying so much? Aren't you afraid that your eyes will melt?" Apparently, I couldn't cure that crybaby side to her in 100 days. "I can't dictate which path you'll take. But, if possible, I'd be happy if you could support His Highness Sazengel instead of me." As you know, His Highness is a bit lacking. When I said that, she shook her head over and over. I can't do it. If it isn't Lady Lelouch, it's impossible. Still, I'm sorry, I have no one to ask but you. And, even if I know it's unreasonable, I still prefer you. After all, she was the only one who knew everything I had learned, what I'd been thinking about, even though she resented me for the princess education. If you choose that path, you'll have to walk an even tougher path, one that the title of Baron can't handle. So, just lend me your ear. To her, who gently lent me an ear amidst her sobs, I whispered, tell your father Nameless didn't protect the witch. Nameless was able to survive because he was protected by the witch and that they were genuine lovers. God, forgive me, I forgot what I heard from you. However, that was the only way I could come up with to help her family. Even if the Alban family became related to the Elkage family, as expected, her title of Baron wouldn't suffice. On the other hand, a knowledgeable Baron might be able to unravel the history further from that idea alone. If the achievements of Baron Alban, a historian, increased, then he might gain more recognition. That way, it wouldn't be impossible for Lumiere to be adopted by the Elkage family and marry into the royal family. It's going to be a discussion between adults, but this is the best I can give you. Then, the last thing I'd like to say is, that bracelet, if it gets in the way, you may discard it. I won't. I'll definitely cherish it forever. I'll never remove it. Well, being utterly honest, it doesn't even match her dress today. What a goofball. After smiling, I turned around. Your Highness Sazengil. What is it? Somehow, I felt like I'd been asked such a question by His Highness all this time. What is it? Or, do you have any worries? Until the end, all I did is make him worry. Perhaps, it wasn't wrong for me to be thought of as a little sister. Hence why, I'd leave the preaching for that older brother. Currently, His Highness Zerfield is still overwhelmed outside. Can you beat him up for me? What? Beat him up, okay? He's a naughty boy who doesn't value his life. Yes, I'll definitely give him a lesson. Also, Your Highness. Yes. What is it? What is it, Lelouch? Ah. His Highness' arms are so warm. I'm getting sleepier. I didn't feel like I had any strength in my limbs anymore. But before I closed my eyes, as someone who was once a candidate for the Queen, I had to say this one last thing. Please, may the world you rule be prosperous. Then, the doors opened. What caught my eyes was a breathtakingly beautiful painting. The large decoration in front of the venue was nothing compared to what was depicted in the book. I could no longer see the crowds. Instead, I saw bright red flowers lit up by the brilliant setting sun. Amidst such a scenery, a man clad in white could be seen. He was gazing at the same scenery. Hey, when you turn around, can you tell me your name? As if I'll ever tell you, you bad girl. Then, the god who descended down with his usual pure white appearance flicked my forehead with his fingertips. I could no longer feel any pain. My body was light. Or rather, that was the first time it had ever felt so light. Below my feet, I could see the remains of Lelouch Elkage being embraced by His Highness as he stifled his tears. Amidst the crowd, Lumiere's childish cries reverberated. I'm in a worse state than I thought. Blood was all over the place, and it went without saying that even my new dress was ruined. Did I fail? Hey, God. Did I lose the bet? What are you talking about? You did enough. You've shown me something truly beautiful. Is that so? But look, my makeup is ruined. Lelouch. For the first time, he uttered my name. When I involuntarily stared back at him, God briefly showed a painful expression, before talking to me like usual. But, isn't that cheating? You told my story to someone who had yet to die. How is that so? All I did was transformed Nameless past into a story that'd give courage, hope, and inspiration to those of the present age. I don't like that at all. It's so embarrassing. After making a fuss, God averted his gaze and folded his arms. Like I said, I don't like it. Besides, she wasn't my lover. Oh, I see. Was it an unrequited love? What a tragic love affair. Leave me alone, foo-foo. For me to still be able to ruffle God's feathers, I was very happy. Hey, God. Let's dance. Huh. I forcibly dragged God into the dance hall. Of course, with a dead lady in the lobby, no music was playing. I usually wouldn't meddle in someone else's affairs, but it sure was noisy here. Oh, well. The warm and vivid color emanating from the chandeliers were gorgeous, and so were the flower decorations. Above all, the splendidly framed paintings at the center of the hall were so colorful. Should I invite him to admire the paintings of André Oscar? But I'm not a good dancer. Apparently, there are things that even God can't do. It's all right, let's just twirl around. Besides, no one was watching. I took God's hands and started spinning. Foo-foo, I don't have to worry about bumping into someone else. Moreover, dancing while soaring in the air was so much fun. Hey, what kind of relationship did you have with the painter, André? What? He was my junior back when I was still a student. He always admired me. Even after the incident, he still invited me out and gave me various things. Foo-foo, is it okay to tell me that? Even if I had died, weren't there topics he shouldn't be telling an ordinary human like me? When I continued to tease him in that regard, God sulked and said, I won't talk to you anymore. That appearance of his was so cute, I couldn't help but laugh. After that, the same God who said that he wouldn't talk to me asked, more than that, isn't there something you want to know? For example, the future of the second prince. For your information, his older brother will beat him up after this. Then, after getting beaten, he'd say, as I thought, Lelouche hit the hardest. I don't care about such a thing, for real. Being a ghost sure was great. No matter how much I spun around, I didn't feel dizzy. Not only that, I also didn't feel any fatigue. It felt as if I was back in the dream world, where I used to drink tea with God. I might have said something regrettable. Despite that, I was aware that even if I knew their futures, I wouldn't be able to return. Therefore, I made it brief and spoke with a smile. Yep, it doesn't matter. Besides, to me, they're just trivialities. I knew you'd say that. I was Lelouche Elkidge, after all. It didn't matter if I was crying or laughing. It didn't matter what kind of education I received, or what kind of environment I was born in. I couldn't be anything other than myself. My hands were too full with myself. As such, please let me indulge myself. Besides, the only thing I could do was believe. Hence why I only did what I had to ensure my own happiness. Hey, God. Regarding that bet, I couldn't stop my feet, nor could I let go of God's hand. Even though God had promised to grant my wish, I hesitated to say it out loud. I wondered what kind of expression he'd make. Don't hesitate to tell me your wish. I'm used to your outrageous behavior. As we spun around, God smiled with an unusually benevolent face. I dedicate this selfish wish to the wicked you. All right, I want us to fall in love. Okay, let's arrange for us to fall. Wait, what? As expected, God was hesitant. Not on my watch. Did he think I'd back down? After all, hadn't I just led a gentleman, namely him, to a dance? Is it no good? From what I heard, it seems that the work of a god is more cumbersome than that of a queen, so why don't you become a human? It isn't like you're suitable to be a god, anyway. How is it? It's the perfect solution, isn't it? No. I'm suitable for this job, if I do say so myself. But as for falling in love with me, Boku. Oh my, did God just refer to himself as Boku? You're so cute. It suits you. When you spoke so reverently, I always wondered what kind of person you truly were. Like I said, I was a god. As he reluctantly danced with me, the god spat those words. Foo-foo, in past tense. That trivial phrase made me so happy, although he himself might not be aware of that. Nevertheless, his steps became messy. Enough. Until the end, you just do whatever suit your fancy. What kind of villainess are you? Foo-foo, I'm honored to be praised. As I've said countless times, I'm not praising you. After taking a deep breath, God exhaled slowly. We had finished dancing. Then, he roughly scratched his head while glaring at me. You won't regret it. Regret what? If I were to meet you again after being reborn, You won't say something like, "Oh, you really came?" I only said that as a joke. Oh, wow, you're good at mimicking voices. Well, while that's a great idea, please don't worry. I can't promise I won't complain if you're late, though. If we were going to fall in love with each other, it'd be better to start when we were both young. Although falling in love with each other after we matured sounded like a fine idea, I was inexperienced with romance. Therefore, I wanted to start with the basics. Besides, I wasn't going to throw away the bet I'd wagered my life on. When I hid my smile with my hand, God nodded after slowly sighing once again. Ha! Fine, I got it. Then, he spoke while pretending to be in contemplation. There are so many things to process, so it'll be difficult to reunite with you after you're reborn right away. But I'll come for you as soon as possible. As such, can you please wait for me? Is that truly all right? What is? Are you truly in love with me? I mean, my personality is not exactly agreeable. To be honest, even if I was reborn, I doubted that I could become a pure and upright person. When I anxiously asked him, God looked unusually happy. With tears in his eyes, he smiled wryly. I'll grant your wish, didn't I promise you that? Besides. No, never mind. Then, until we meet again. What? After everything we went through, you still dare to keep a secret from me? I thought we're close. This entire conversation happened because of you, okay? No matter how close we are, it's just impossible. Who? That's just saddening. I'm going to cry. As I pretended to cry, God extended his hand to me. Although his fingers were white and slender, they had firm knots. When I hesitated about what to do, God made me take his hand. Now that it has come to this, I'll have to go, soon. Because of you, I've become busy. I'm not a patient person, you hear me? Alright, okay, I'll do my best. Then, we soared high and passed through the ceiling. His Highness and the others disappeared entirely. The starry sky was brighter than usual. I couldn't see the ground beneath me. Thus, I looked up. Hey, God. What's your real name? Well, it's nameless. Alright, I'll tell you. Until the last minute, I had many conversations with God. After all, until the next time we met again, it'd be goodbye. So, goodbye. Those I loved, who watched over me. Thanks to you, I had a very enjoyable time. Thus, until the day we meet again, my best wishes for you. Epilogue, Idle Talk, the monologue of a former god. I want to spend every day just like any normal girl. Those were the last words of that child before she perished. As she said that, a gentle smile spread across her face. Such was the fate of the girl who was once shunned and tried for being a witch. Surely, only I was aware of her final wish. The last wish she uttered as she passed on in my arms. Despite being a god, I wasn't omnipotent. As such, I could neither perceive all the tens and thousands of lives that passed before my eyes, nor manipulate the gazillion cycles of life. Thus, I went through the motion of processing them unconsciously, indifferently. Process it. Process it. Process it. The 1,000 years that passed were filled with nothing but emptiness. While not present in this world, a god was akin to a cog in a machine. In a colorless, scentless world, all I could ponder about was the regrets I had when I was alive, and the emptiness and meaningless drivels I had now. How did I become a god? I, a disgraced and tarnished hero, was unfortunately chosen to become a god instead of entering samsara. As such, if my time as a god had any meaning, then it must be that my soul wasn't worth returning. Well, I'm sorry about that. The life saved by that child was about to be engraved in history along with my regret of 1,500 years. At that time, I noticed a girl in my hindsight. She was a pitiful girl who'd die in 100 days. During her entire life, all she had was her responsibility as the future queen. However, the girl, who wore her smile like a mask, would end up being stabbed by the man she was about to marry. In the presence of that girl, my dormant senses were gradually resurrected, as my entire body stirred. Ah, why are you burdened with such a fate again? Why are you living such an unhappy life again? Why can I only watch you die? My sinking consciousness resurfaced. After that, I couldn't bear to sit idly and watch. Apparently, even after 1500 years, I still hadn't changed. I was still the biggest moron in history. Since then, I still hadn't changed in the slightest. I still blindly reached out to help you. Damn, why aren't I omnipotent despite being a god? If such was the case, even if it meant sacrificing the world, I'd save your life. However, because I couldn't perform such a miracle, in the end, all I could do was to act self-righteously and hypocritically. You'll die in 100 days. In order to make you chase after what I believed constituted as happiness, I exaggerated your fate. Oh, how arrogant of me. Even that wish of mine was nothing but hypocrisy. In the first place, after reincarnating, she had already become an entirely different entity than that child. Her memories were different, along with her circumstances. Even if she was born with the same soul, they were two different people. Regardless, after seeing your strong, dignified, and proud figure, I, who pretended to be an almighty god, fell in love with your new self all over again. The girl named Lelouche Elkidge stood tall and beautifully until the moment she was reborn. She curtsied and showed me a cunning smile. Behind her smile was a compelling sense of pressure. Then, she told me to come for her. As for me, I had no reason to object. But did you realize? If you were reborn, you'd inadvertently lose your memories again. Therefore, even that promise of yours might end in oblivion. After all, you were about to start a different life than that of Lelouche Elkidge. Which was why, even if you wished to see me again, even if I had arbitrarily become human due to my abiding to your wish, and then I went to see you, you might not remember me at all. Nevertheless, I'll come for you. Even if you don't remember anything, no, there was a chance that I might forget myself, as well. However, I'd definitely find you, and make what you wished for us come true. But before that, I decided to do a bit of sightseeing and visit the children you cherished. But it's your idle monologue, you'd definitely say, to which I'd laugh at. Although, in a way, I did see everything. Well, it was just for my own satisfaction. Generally speaking, everyone ended happily. After drawing many paintings of his older sister, your little brother became a spotlight. Later, he became a master painter almost of the same standing as André Oscar. Lelouch's Smile, such was the name of his masterpiece. As for your parents, they were on good terms until the end of their lives. Then, about your friends. What, will you consider this as a waste of your time, as well? Unable to bear the sight of the second prince, who was moping in a tavern while hiding from his brother and the country, I bought him some alcohol. Do you want to know what our conversation entailed? Well, it was mostly me boasting about how the woman I'd been in love for a long time confessed to me. I was just that proud of myself. But somehow, or maybe because of the drinks we shared, he somewhat recovered. Afterwards, he traveled around the world using his innate talent for swordsmanship and charisma. Along the way, when the threat of war loomed over his homeland, he secretly manipulated the rumors to help with his brother's reign. Thus, he was renowned as a hero. Although, from his own perspective, the title itself sounded deprecating. Nevertheless, thanks to his secret maneuvers, the period where Sazangil Lucchino Lapicenta governed became a peaceful era that would go down in history. Then, inside the will of the former queen of the time, she wrote that she'd like to wear a white shell bracelet when laid in her coffin. Hey, Lily. I know best that no true miracles existed in this world. Despite that, the trail you left behind was engraved into the world. Even so, would you still digress, calling it a mere idle monologue? Section. When I finally met you, it was about time for us to fall in love by the sea. The only reason my memories remained intact was because I struggled a lot. It was a worthwhile struggle. Of course, I didn't pass on as cool as she did. Moreover, I still didn't believe in miracles enough to let fate run its course. On the white sandy beach, where the waves were ebbing and flowing, I went to find my lover. If you were to ask me, "Who are you?" with a cold stare, I wondered how disappointed I would be. Nevertheless, I'd remind you over and over again. As I was about to stand up, a shadow expanded under the blue sky. The person responsible for it held out her delicate hand to me. A girl wearing a simple, pure white dress. With black hair over her ears, she smiled at me, looking more beautiful than anyone else. But I've been waiting for so long. Instinctively, I felt grateful towards the miracle. Now, until the moment we die, let's enjoy our most enjoyable future together. End of Volume 2.